Okay, I was specifically asked by somebody that during this meeting that we hand microphones over to everybody while we're talking, that I please try to not forget to hand microphones over like to Jean or to Misty or something so that we can hear them when they're talking. So, okay, so we're going to start with the work meeting. And as you guys see, I only had two. I just realized something I forgot. Oh, well. Two items on the work meeting for us to talk about. One was about the dark skies, and then the helicopter and maybe a helicopter and a drone ordinance. So I think what I'd like to do, I think the helicopter and drone ordinance discussion won't take very long. So I was thinking maybe I would just start with that one instead of the dark sky, if that's okay with you guys. Fine. Okay. All right. So the reason I put this on for us to talk about in the work meeting is because in the space of 1 week, we had two different helicopters come in and land in town. And I asked around to find out what was going on, and it sounded like a totally reasonable thing. It sounded like there was some sort of an issue with the helicopter, and they landed to try to fix the problem. And I'm like, okay, fine. In town, and he landed in an empty lot next to a house where there was a party. And so some of the people in the neighborhood called the sheriff because this helicopter, and he went over to the party and talked to the person who was flying the helicopter. And this person told him where he came from, which was somewhere in Nevada, and that he had come for this party. And the sheriff had said, well, there's nothing we can really do because you guys don't have any kind of ordinance on your record, on your books about helicopters in town. And then maybe 2 days later after that, which was the second helicopter, then maybe 2 days after that, I was contacted by somebody who said that there was a flock of drones that were over his house. And he followed the drones back, and they came from the RV park. So some people who had obviously camping had brought some drones and were flying them around and went over his house. So I put this on for us to talk about, and whether or not we want to adopt some sort of ordinance regarding helicopters. I did look to see what Springdale did, and they have it as they regulate it as a nuisance. That's how Springdale has it on their books. But I just wanted for us to discuss whether or not we even want an ordinance like that about helicopters or drones. So the floor is open for discussion.
I'm 100% in support because right here down on the river where I live, I've had multiple flying in my yard, not over the river, drones. And the helicopters fly right here along this mesa. And I know that's not in our town property, but they fly right here along this mesa, and sometimes they come out this way. And the only ones that bother me are the ones that are at midnight. And they're not the
Zion helicopter,
the Life Flight or whatever. Those whatever, they can fly where they want to. But the drones in my yard are really frustrating because they'll hover for a minute, and there's kids out there.
Do you ever try to track them down to see where they're coming from?
I found out one,
Okay.
but he didn't fly in my yard. He actually showed me, he went down the river bank, and it's our tuber guy, and he's just making sure it's safe for
the tubers. Okay.
Yep, I talked to him. So I talked to Adam about it, and it wasn't his drone. So he showed me where he goes along there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, but they definitely fly over our yards. So I'm 100% in support of it.
Okay. Jean, do you have anything to say?
So I think for the helicopters, my mindset is on that they shouldn't be landing in town. Zion helicopter, it's pretty easy to work with the FAA, and I'm sure our attorney's done this stuff before where you set a height, where you set a ceiling that says you can't come below that They typically, from my experience, they're not flying over the town, but they're flying pretty low on the outskirts of town, which we really probably don't have a lot of control over, right? They come up there at the end of Gooseberry. There's that, they call it Watermelon Hill, right behind Spindlove's and Allen's property. And they, at one point, they were landing there and letting people out and taking back off. I don't know if they're still doing that, but that's about as close as I've seen them. But I don't think they should be landing in town, personally. So I'm up for that. The drones, that one's a tough deal because not everybody that's flying a drone is filming. Some people are just, I have drones, so I know about this, but you're enjoying the view. You can get up and see above things and whatnot. So maybe it's the same kind of thing. You put a ceiling over personal property, but as long as they're on the river or other places, they can fly down. That'd be my thoughts.
Possibly a special permit for business owners that need to fly along like the river and things like that. Maybe a special permit for certain things.
So if they're going below the flight
Right.
ceiling or something like that, I'd be okay. But if it's just to fly, I want to make sure that there's a differentiation, because if we're charging somebody for a permit to use it, but Joe Blow in his backyard can do it and there's no consequences then. So, and the sheriff's department won't reinforce the helicopters even if we do have an ordinance unless we pay them extra money to do so. So they won't enforce town ordinances unless it's a county ordinance as well, or you pay extra money for that, just so you know.
Paul, you have anything to say?
I think my comments are probably duplicate of everybody else. Yes, let's take a look and see what we can regulate with respect to the drones. There's some things that we could probably regulate for our public safety. Helicopters, it sounds like we may want to prohibit that for at least for landing in town. I'm all right with that. Another question that we haven't addressed is whether we would allow heliports as part of a commercial project. And that's something we should probably take a look at and then, of course, let the planning board weigh in on that particular issue.
Okay. Leroy, any thoughts?
I'm okay with not having helicopters in town. I haven't seen any problem with drones.
Yeah, I
All the time
hadn't,
I've lived here, I haven't seen, any of them at all.
yeah, I hadn't heard about any problems with drones until I got this call like 2 days after the helicopter. So it's like, oh, for goodness sakes, everybody and their toys.
We also have these, I forget what you call them, where they got a parachute on them and they got an engine and they fly over. I've seen those going over quite a bit.
I never thought about
But,
those.
if we're gonna outlaw drones, then you've got to think there's a wider perspective, of people.
Flying airplanes that are mechanical as well as a tiny model airplane.
Yeah.
Drones, there's really two kinds of people. There's the professionals, like Adam and others that purchase the equipment the sheriff's office uses. I mean, they're used for professional photography, they're used for real estate, and then there's the backyard guy that just has one of these flying around. So really what you're trying to regulate should be the backyard guy that was spying on his neighbor in the bikini in the backyard. That kind of stuff should be. But I think the professionals need that. And the professional drones, they have on the screen, they tell you how far above the ground level you are because the FAA actually regulates your ceiling, and there's all kinds of FAA laws about it. And I'm not even up to date. I'm probably 5 years out of date, but I know now a lot of the professional drones, you have to be licensed. So it's getting more and more regulated, but that doesn't do anything for the little guys in the backyard. But I do know that, and I'm going to have to ask for Heath's backup, but I do know that the courts have backed people that took their shotgun out and dropped one that's flying over their property too, if it's over their direct property.
Utah passed a law in 2017, prohibits a person from.
The main thing is we don't want to punish people that are using them professionally. I mean, Adam isn't just using them to patrol the river to make sure there's not garbage, but film crews and people come and use them for Hollywood stuff. So yeah.
Or real estate. Like I had back years ago when David White still owned the Rio de Sign development, he got a drone and asked if he could fly over our property and test it out and see what our property looked like from above. And we're like, sure. So he sent us all the pictures and the video, and we're like, wow, okay, great. But, you know, something like that is fine because it's a real estate person who wants to show what the house looks like. So,
See, I would disagree with prohibiting uh, the locals or neighbors flying drones. My neighbor does it for nighttime photography. He does it for photography. He's not a professional, but he does provide good pictures. And so that's why I said I'm not in favor of prohibiting drones, but maybe regulating them as to, and I'd have to look at the various regulations and options, but maybe regulate and control the use of them in certain areas. So, and state law covers part of it, and maybe our ordinance would be duplicate of state law to some degree.
It's the night photography you gotta watch out for.
Yeah. And my wife out there and firing the gun if it goes over the property.
I don't fly professionally, but I enjoy flying my drone up over the top of like coal pits that come up over the top. It's just beautiful to see on the screen. It's kind of like you're flying in that vehicle, so I'm kind of the same way. I'm not so sure the town needs to regulate it, the state law covers everything. Maybe we should look at the state law and see what it covers for writing a bunch of stuff.
Well, also, we write a code that prohibits it, and we make it a criminal act or something like that, and we're gonna have to pay to enforce it, prosecute it if we cite someone under, if we cite them under state code, then the citation gets settled to the county attorney's office, they prosecute it. So we probably ought to focus and see what, I can pull you guys, I was just reading, there are 5 different statutes that have some effect. I mean, things like harassing or injuring livestock with a drone is a violation. That's not incredibly relevant, but there is one that addresses privacy. There is an exemption for persons who, under that privacy restriction, who are using it for legitimate commercial or education purposes, consistent with FAA regulations. We're talking FAA regulated airspace, depending on your closest airport. If it has a tower, it's 1,200 feet. If it does not, if your closest airport does not have a tower, it's 700 feet. And that's everything above that is regulated by the FAA.
So here's my other question, I guess, if it's there. I can yell pretty loud if I need to. The other question I have with it is, what does the prosecuting attorney need to be able to prosecute? Because you can't just say, yeah, I saw this guy's drone flying over my property, and he's saying, no, it isn't. So do you have to have multiple witnesses? How do you prosecute?
Well, I think, yeah, an officer, if they're gonna cite them, they're gonna need to have either firsthand witness testimony or observe themselves.
Okay, so it's pretty darn hard to regulate unless you got a cop sitting here all the time watching every drone owner.
Or somebody takes out their cell phone and follows the drone to the person operating it.
But even then, that's dang hard to determine your height and everything else on them. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to looking at the regulations. I don't know if I would agree to do them until I see what you're regulating. And maybe there's some benefit to, and I know we hate doing this, is to license drones that are operated in the city, just so we know who has them. And, but I don't know if that's prohibited by state law or not. And I don't know, I'd have to think more about the benefit of that. What benefit would we get out of licensing and knowing who has drones, other than if there's one being flown around, you can maybe track it down and talk to the guy.
I personally like what Springdale's done. I think it's an interesting way.
did you say Springdale or Springville?
Springdale.
Springdale. Okay.
Is doing with making it a nuisance. If it's observed or it can be documented that someone's flying a drone or a aircraft in such a way to create a unnecessary noise, dust, or sight. It does leave some discretion, but
And hovering over someone's yard with you. I felt like.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that's why I wondered.
It's just tough, because the guys that have vehicles are licensed with the FAA, it's a mom and pop. You know, people are RV parking lots and little chasing Chinese numbers. That's where you get it, when you can buy them cheap.
No, I was just laughing at your chintzy Chinese number.
They're just, sorry. Come across PC, but I find one of those, there's no restriction, there's no way to track them, other than just, it's a license guy out there, unless you get an officer there.
Or if someone took a video, pull out their phone and videotape it.
And there may be some benefit of doing some minor regulation in that you have an ordinance that regulates drones, and you can just post it at the RV parks that year. And that becomes, before you fly your drone, visitor, be aware that there's a regulation, you can't do X, Y, and Z. And that's what I see the benefit of. You know, the people that live here are going to be respectful. It's the visitors come in for 1 or 2 days and get excited about seeing all the countryside. And maybe that's what we should concentrate on, is how to deal with that.
Biggest gift we got is the wind, because it was small.
Mhm.
Previously, aforementioned drones do too well.
It's illegal to fly a drone that has a weapon attached to it. You know that. Stop, you don't know that.
Well, we'll be sure to prohibit that.
Already prohibited by state law.
Okay, we only have a couple more minutes before, we have a few more. I'm sorry, that clock is a little off. So I won't say a whole lot about dark sky, since I have dark sky to talk about under item G later on. I was just going to introduce the topic is all here. And we had talked in the past when the people from Desert Gardens did their presentation about their surveys on dark sky. We were in the process of asking Rocky Mountain Power about, they said they had a dark sky lighting program, and we were asking for information. So I'll talk about this later on when we get into where we're item G, but they've given us a price for doing all the fixtures throughout the entire town. So it'd make the entire town have lights that are dark sky compliant, not just one neighborhood. And we'll just talk about that later on then. Because, I have 6 more minutes. Okay. So this, what the Rocky Mountain Power sent over, and I'll explain it later when we get into looking at it, but it showed that our electric bill, if we were to move to this dark sky lighting throughout the town on our lighting, all our light poles, that it will reduce our electric bill by 45%. Right now, our average monthly lighting bill is $441, and it'll reduce to $226. So it would be a savings of $214 per month if we were to do this, switching out the light fixtures for this. So basically, it would pay for itself in 3.5 years, according to Rocky Mountain Power. So we will talk about that later on. So we'll just take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back at 7, in case anybody needs to take 5 minutes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think it's.
Yeah, I can do it. Or June can do it, or you could have.
Something to read. All right, everybody, back to the meeting. Okay, so I'm calling the regular meeting to order. And I forgot to make arrangements for the invocation. So anyone in the audience who might have some words they would like to say. If not, then we have a town council member who will do an invocation if no member of the public is interested. I'm taking that as a no.
Our kind Father in heaven, we bow our heads before thee in gratitude for our life and for the opportunity to live in this beautiful area of the world. We're grateful for all the members of this community and how they support the town. We pray your spirit will be with us, a spirit of love and of understanding and of empathy for one another's needs. That we might do those things that are best for the town, but it might not even be best for us. We pray for these things and pray for thy guidance at all times. In the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Want me to do the pledge? Everyone stand for the pledge, please, and follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, any member of town council have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda?
No.
And me, no. All right, then council comments. The only thing I wanted to let everybody know, we've had lots of complaints about people can't hear what is being said in the meetings because we don't have enough microphones. And to be honest, I really don't even understand why when we got microphones a few years back, we only got 4. We clearly need 8. So why they only got 4, I do not know. But in any event, we tried to Crystal ordered 4 more in January, and we were told they'd come in March or April, and no updates. And I've talked with a number of other towns that are also trying to update their audio system. Everything is back ordered. And so we are not the only ones. And I've even tried to go online and order for us more of everything from what we have, and everything is sold out, back ordered. Nobody has anything for the system that we use. And so I just wanted everybody to know it's not like we're ignoring the system. They're just not out there. They're made in China, and this seems to be the industry standard, this brand that we have, and that's what everybody is trying to use, and there's just none available. So just let you know. So we're doing what we can on the microphones. And I really don't have anything else that I was going to talk about. Anybody have anything you want to say?
I have a few items. This is directed basically at the council members. We have a public works guy that is doing a fairly good job, but we need to remember that we also have an assignment, like Paul's over parks, and Gene and I are over the other public works. And we need to clarify or go through the person that is in charge of that public works person. So for example, if I see something needs to be done, I need to make sure I don't go to the public works guy who's already been given assignments by Gene Garotti, who supervises him every day. So we need to clear everything through Gene so that the public works guy is not getting different messages from different members of the council. And that has happened recently, and so we just need to make sure that we go through Gene so he can put it on the agenda to do. And for the public, if you see things that you feel needs to be done, that you could contact myself or Gene Garotti, and then he can line it up to go through. Also, each one of us, because of our areas of responsibility, are going to be attending different meetings. And I would really like if we go to meetings, especially when you're using town funds, to to be a participant in the meeting or travel, that we make a report to the public at our meetings and to one another what happened to that meeting, what you learned, how it can benefit the town, how it can benefit you as a council person. And I think that's important. The only other item I had was the fire district. I wasn't, I was out, so I don't know what happened there. And I understand that Gene was, our mayor was asked to represent us there, but only for a short period of time. But my understanding is that you can't do it for a short period of time. They make an assignment. So I just want a clarification for myself on that. And then the other item is, as treasurer, I feel I need to make a report every time on how the town is doing. The town is financially sound. Year to date, we have revenues of $751,000 and expenses of $468,000, which gives us $283,000 in net profit. The majority of that revenue comes from transit room tax, resort tax, sales tax, and property tax. So I just want to let you know we are in the process in our budgeting committee, which is composed of our accountant and the mayor and myself, of trying to find out what needs to be done by having engineering staff do some assessments on our roads, on our water system, and on our wastewater systems, just so that we can use this money properly to do improvements to the infrastructure of the town. That's all I have, Mayor.
Paul, do you have anything?
Leroy, I do like your proposal that if any member of the town goes to a conference or something based on use of town money, I think it's appropriate that they give a report. That's a good idea. Of the bulletin board as you go into town hall. Thank you. That was long overdue. To piggyback, I guess, on Leroy's item. And Leroy and I are going to meet with 5 counties in about 2 weeks to discuss CIP, which is what he's mentioning there with trying to figure out what should be on the improvements list. We're in the process of preparing proposals for the future, for long term.
Sorry, my microphone keeps turning itself off. I swear I'm not doing anything to it. It just, I did not. Okay. I'll do it in a minute when somebody's talking. So Misty, you said you did not have anything to say, correct?
No, just some kudos to our public works guy. He was filling potholes in a very hard way. He's trying to do that. He was actually probably one of those posts tonight. These efforts need to be noted. He was working really hard to fill potholes in town.
Okay.
So, kudos to him.
And that leaves Jean. Keep track of, apparently goes off.
It's on now. Stuff I've been working on, some of this is a couple months old because I wasn't here last month, but I met with Matt Rhodes, the DOT, about a month and a half ago regarding next steps for master transportation plan, as well as a special projects plan, which were kind of addressed. I talked with Cameron about this. He brought it up in the commission meeting. But basically, the transportation plan obviously is running through town, what they plan to do with SR9. The special project plan is trying to level that hill on 700 West in front of Rodino's restaurant and bring that valley up in front of the Mun. So when you go out of town and pass, right before you,
when you go down by the Mud Project, before you start at the hill, all those properties, Kevin Stout, the Longs, anybody that pulls out there, and Cornelius and the end, I can't remember the name of the fellow.
700.
Yeah, so, but all that area right there is a pretty serious downside. So they put me in touch with the person we can talk to. So what I'm gonna try to do is compile some information, bring it in, we can decide. They would level that out, to make it where people are risking to get their heads cut off every time they pull out. So, working still with Sunrise Engineering on the wastewater study. They have submitted their first bill, they're expecting by fall they'll have it completed, and that has to do with an update on the old one that we had, as well as kind of setting standards for what we can do with septic for the future. I've added to it, and they will give us an estimate when we get to that point where we can approve it. And I asked them to do 3 separate additional pieces to that wastewater study. So the low point in town is the Munn project. And they're gonna be bringing up the trunk line up over the hill probably this year. And so I asked them to give us an estimate of what it would be, if everything on the east side or the west side of town has to drain into Munn's project. And then be pumped back out to the trunk line. So I asked them to just give us an estimate of what we'd be looking at to do that portion. Do a second estimate, what it would take to run a trunk line all the way to Mill Street, and then a third one to run it all the way to Coldwell. So they'll give us 3 different options. It's obviously not something the town's going to afford without grants or, help them, but that's what I've asked them to put together.
Are you trying to tell me I need to apply for it now?
Probably, at some point. I mean, we won't have any information until the fall, but, Mike Chandler's really pushing the town kind of hard. He's actually asked me to begin at the Munn project on, we should probably be ready, or not the outside person, at the Munn project on May 5th to discuss, because the plans have changed where they didn't get that trunk line underneath the trail. So they're trying to figure out next steps, because Munn's project is somewhat hindered by the fact that they've got a massive tank, they're just pumping everywhere. That was the plan until such time as the trunk line came down. So, I mean, this is probably still years down the road, but that's kind of where that's at. And I implore and beg people not to go into panic mode. This is years away still, but it's stuff that we've got to start looking at, obviously, in the future. So, everybody probably saw when they drove by in the morning, heard right in town, broke ground at the gas station finally, and then they haven't come back. So they did break them, and so that'll be a news later as well. Nice little opening ceremony, thanks to the mayor coming out and shoveling the ceremonial dirt. Other than that, we're working with the engineer, I'm working with the engineer on the drainage issue on the west side of the ACO that's done in property. We're meeting on Friday to get some plans drawn up to repair that. That'll be repaired by, help me, I'm having one.
Campbell.
Well, not Campbell, it's the drainage thing right below his place there. The people that did that second, third phase.
Yeah, that's Campbell that did that. I forget his first
Oh, you're
name.
talking about Jason.
Jason Campbell.
We're not talking more.
It's not Campbell, it's the company that built it, they've got a warranty on it, they're going to repair that. So, and then there's one in Desert Gardens as well, and Boys Hall for there. We went down and looked at that, gives the plans back on that. Basically, what we're doing on that one is that it's a drainage underneath, but when it reaches its maximum capacity, we'll have an overflow over the drain into a ditch. So we'll have a double. And then the last thing, we had some suggestions or concerns a couple months ago about the bridge having some washout. Had the engineer come out and look at it, he said there's no problem with it, but he wanted to see the original plans, which I located finally today, so. What's going to come up on Friday? Your bridge.
Oh, okay.
Over there. So on the south side, there's some undercut, but there's enough foliage growing in there, and he said, do not take that stuff out, that's your vascular graft, that would put rocks and everything else. But he wants to see what the original measurements were for the pylons, as well as how far the bar was from the cement. He said, you're decades away from having a concern, even if it is right now, but he didn't want, I asked him to kind of get that in play, because there's obviously things coming up that you're.
So you found the papers that are upstairs?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's gonna come on Friday and we're gonna do that, so. Yeah, I think that's really about it. We had a nice meeting today with, Red Fort.
Yes,
I know
okay.
you'd be excited about that. It's way earlier, but, it looks like it's gonna happen.
That may happen. Yay.
That's all I have.
Was it at that piece of property that we were talking about, a different piece of property? Oh, darn it. Okay. 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 On to item number 5, the consent agenda for, has everyone reviewed the checks and invoices and the minutes of the town council meetings that we have here to approve? I know we have your suggested changes, Paul, and I made some changes to the minutes for the meeting of March 23rd, and I've told Darcy I will hand them to her on my way out after the meeting's over. Okay. Any issues with the checks and invoices? Anyone? Nope. Okay. Then the last thing on the consent agenda has to do, we've called this town office repair. And this is for tenting the town hall for termites. And we had someone come out to give us an estimate for tenting the building. And he did an examination of the town hall. And the termite damage is really bad. And down in the basement, there are 2 massive round wooden support posts that are helping support the building. And they're now hollow inside because the termites have eaten out the inside. And then those 2 support beams, they have another beam sitting across them that also has been eaten out by termites. And the inside of the town hall, in all the windows, there's termite once a week. They vacuum it out. There's termites again by the next week. And there's cracks in the walls inside the building that are coming from termite damage. And so basically, we get rid of the termites or the building may not be able to be saved.
So we also asked, and Dan and the mayor took care of this, had a beekeeper come out for anybody besides me that loves bees to look at that. In the past, we looked at getting those out. The problem with removing the bees before the termites is that you can't do it because it's a historic building and the only way to get to the bees is to tear the walls apart. If you trap them out, which is a possibility, it leaves all the honey and the comb and everything inside there, and then you have ants and moths and everything else. So they're going to have to go with the termites. And then at some point, we'll have to figure out how to work around the historical building to get the garbage out of the wall. We'll have ant problems and everything else. So anyway.
And after that is tented, according to the bee guy, that if we don't, there's a lot of holes throughout the whole building, a lot of chinks in the masonry, and in the where even the roof is trying to separate from the building because of the termite damage. And according to the bee guy, if we just if we tent the building, kill the bees, because the honey is still there, new bees were just going to come and take over. So we have to fill in all the holes everywhere. So we're going to have a mason come and do that afterwards. So that's what we're talking about here with the town office repair. And we have a price for doing the tenting. The price is $6,800, but he needs to use a lift because the building is so tall, and that's an extra $2,000. So the total to tent the building will be $8,800. And Leroy has reviewed the budget and said we've got the money to do it. So to do both that and the masonry work afterwards. And the plan, both Crystal and Dan have asked for vacation time, and they both asked for the exact same time. So we're going to tent the building while they're both gone on vacation. That's the most economic, most efficient use of everyone's time. So that will be May 16 to what?
Building will be closed May 16th through the 20th. So, yes.
So May 16th through the 20th, just so everyone here knows and anyone watching on YouTube, the office will be closed because both Crystal and Dan will be on vacation and the building will be tented. So there we have it, assuming that we get this consented. So if there's no objection to anything on the consent agenda, can I have a motion? Yes.
I have a clarification. When you're talking about town office repair and 8,800, does that include the masonry or not?
No, it doesn't. We don't have a bid on the masonry
Okay,
yet,
so the approval is just for the tenning.
just for the tinning.
Thank you.
But the masonry work has to be.
It has to be, I realize that. I just want to know what the scope of the approval was.
Masonry on Friday.
It might be wise for future if we keep things that have a $1 like that on a separate item.
Instead of on the
So
consent
we're not
agenda.
approving it. So if there was a problem, we said we didn't want to do that for table. Can we separate those, Steve, or is that?
Yeah.
We can't separate.
Then they're distinct.
Scratch what I said.
Okay, so I need a motion on the,
I'll make the motion
okay,
that we approve the use of, what was the total amount?
8823.
Funds in the amount of 8023 for the tenting and the lift for the removal of the termination and removal, I guess, termination of the termites for the tent.
Second.
Does the motion need to cover the consent agenda?
Yeah, the motion needs to cover the entire consent agenda. Okay.
Which includes the amendments to the minutes.
With the amendments as six.
And you second. Leroy seconded?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the motion passes with no objection. All right, next thing on the agenda, open forum. If anybody in the audience has anything they would like to come up and mention to the town council, the floor is yours.
Skip Boysnall, Desert Gardens. Question about the Falls Park. Has anybody picked up the trash there in the past month? Trash barrels? Is that?
Isn't our public works guy supposed to be doing that? Or no?
Don't know. You don't know all the job description stuff because it's lost.
Oh, okay.
All right, so it hasn't been picked up in it.
BLM handles that or we handle it as well.
All right, it has not been picked up in at least a month, maybe longer.
Okay.
One other question about Falls Park is that I'm glad that we're fiscally sound as a town. How about throwing a little bit of money that way in terms of just like maintaining the parking area where it's supposed to be? It'd be pretty minimal, and you have equipment to do it. So we're talking rocks, maybe a little fencing. I don't know. I'd just like to throw it out there because the place has been run over for pretty heavily for about 2 years now. And I think it could be a lot nicer place to go. We've had tour buses coming there with like 50 people at a time going in. It gets pretty heavily used every single day. So I was just wondering if there's any interest in doing something with Falls Park.
Okay. There is.
Okay.
Mayor?
And thanks for the update on our culvert. Will you give us a heads up when you're gonna come down there? All right, thank you. It's okay. Thank you.
Before we go to the next person, just update individuals. I asked a member of the public to go check with BLM to see what they paid for the railings that they have out on the Gem Trail station out there, the wood railings, because we need to separate the drive area from the rest of the park in Falls Park. So we're in the process, because that is a concern, bringing that back so we can make a decision as to how to protect that area. So that'll be something coming up in the future.
I think we need to make sure that we're talking to BLM.
Yeah, nope, that's the person knows the BLM, he's gonna check with the BLM for me. No,
Because the road is also private, that's why there's a fence there.
no, anything we do, we have to coordinate with the BLM. Yeah, but we're in the process of looking into that.
Darlene Pope, and I just wanted to thank the council for considering drones. I just had an incident on Easter where I had a drone in my backyard, and I just went out and said in a loud voice, please respect my private property. And that is a regular, drones are becoming more regular, but the thing that impacts us or me is there's a specific paraglider who is at eye level. And I've had one of the, not an official helicopter, but it's kind of like a paraglider, motorized helicopter. There's a name for it. I just can't remember it. And it would dip into the canyon, the river corridor, and then come up. And one time I was watching it and it dipped down and it didn't come up. So I'm like trekking out there to make sure that person's okay. I did call the airports in Hurricane because there's only 2 of them in the area, and they were going to follow up with that because that was definitely a violation. But
Just so everybody knows too, that's something, I don't know what it is for you, Tyler. If I recall from the time the FAA, it's 500 feet, they have to stay under. Paragliders can't go high.
Yeah.
You have to stay level, so you'll never see them flying way up there. But they don't have to fly over 10. Move more out of the
Anybody else on open forum?
I was gonna do this last month and then I forgot, and then you closed open forum. Cameron Spendlove. I was hoping that sometime in your improvements talks for the facility, we really need to get another light at this other exit from the campus area here, over in this corner behind you. Yep. When we had the caucus meetings here, we did have a gentleman that fell because he couldn't see going down that step. Thanks.
Are you talking about just like an outside light on the building? We're not talking about a street light, are we? Okay.
Every other exit has like a little small outdoor light on it, except for that exit.
Okay. Anybody else?
Kent Peterson. I've also had people on this road, specifically Karen, but I would like to recommend that there be maybe some kind of a study or discussion with people on the street about having a light, a street light.
Right here.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There used to be one on the pole across the street, and it was taken down. I'm not sure why. I think something to do with flag or something like that,
But the pole is still there?
pole that it was on is still there. It's a power pole that had the light on it originally. And so it gets really dark right here as you go down the street. And talking to Bronwyn, I think, I'm not sure how she feels, but it's really dark down in that corner, and maybe they like that. But
Okay.
with being considerate of dark sky, if that could be in the discussion as you go forward with the dark sky concept about making some kind of a light that helps for safety and stuff like that.
Okay. Anybody else before we have to go back and do a vote on something that I screwed up? No one else? Okay. Back to the consent agenda. Just as Jean wanted us to separate out the repairs, that is a spending of money, so we have to do a roll call vote. And I did the consent agenda just by voice vote. So we will go back and make a motion on the, I will take a motion on the town office repair, and then we will do a roll call vote.
I did it last time, so let's-
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the ED 23.
Yes, 8823.
Expenditure for the tenting and termination of the termites in the town hall.
I'll second.
All right. Paul,
Aye.
Jean, I, Leroy,
Aye.
Misty. Okay. All right, so we've finished open forum, and so now we will go on to item number C. Item C, we recommend approval for amending ordinance 2022-02 to include a zone change from rural residential to commercial at 34 West SR9, and this is parcel number V-90-B-1. So, any comment from the public before the town council discusses?
Cameron Spenlow. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify on the planning and zoning's recommendation for this. I messed up and uploaded the wrong one. The vote was not unanimous on there. There was one dissenting vote. There was also some public comment on the zone change. The public comment was an observation that the small size of the lot would make it hard for any commercial development to be put on there because of the setbacks and other requirements. And so the public comment was that it would not be a good candidate for the commercial zone because of its small size. On the vote, there was one dissenting vote. The dissenting vote dissented because by his reading of the ordinance, we shouldn't allow this one to go through because of its small size, because it is abnormally small. Thank you.
Okay, before the town council discusses, I'll just bring up one thing. When this was at Planning Commission, Heath had suggested that, and he had actually talked to me about this before it was at the Planning Commission, that we assign a different ordinance number to this and that we include another whereas in this. And so it was the feeling of the people at Planning Commission that they could go ahead and approve this with the expectation that we at Town Council could make the changes with the different ordinance number and adding a whereas. So what I'm going to propose is that we have Crystal assign whatever is the next ordinance number in line for this ordinance, and assuming that we are going to pass this, I have drafted a whereas to put in and was going to run it by everybody. Okay, the whereas would be, 1, 2, 3, it would be number, it's not on here yet. I'm going to have to read it to you. It would be number 5. It would be the 5th whereas. And I just had written down, whereas ordinance 2022-02, rezoning parcel V89-B-1 to commercial was approved on February 23rd, 2022. At that time, the owners of parcel V-90-B-1 were recommended by Town Council to rezone their parcel to commercial, to do so by amending ordinance 2022-02, and to do so by the end of April 2022. The owners of parcel V-90-B-1 have complied with these directives. How does that sound as a whereas?
That's fine. I think a little bit of background too on this, that if you take both parcels combined, then we would have the minimum size, but by rezoning adjacent property owners who are in in the crowd that evening that they consider joining with the original applicant. And so that way that you're looking at it as a challenge, that we're looking at it as a combined application. And so it does meet the size requirements. I understand that each individually owned parcel, they weren't subdivided, might be substandard combined, they meet the minimum size requirement.
Question on that, will that change anything if we're changing the ordinance, and is that separating those two? And you aware that they need to stay under that same ordinance?
It references that this ordinance is amending the prior ordinance.
My whereas that I wrote was saying that. Was my whereas okay, or do you want to add more of the language you were talking about with regard to the fact that it would be an orphan parcel? And that, no, you think this is okay? You want to read this? Okay. Any discussion by any other town council members on this?
No, I have a question. Is the lots, is the non-conform, and I know this is irrespective of the two lots joining, if we're just looking at this parcel, are the setbacks being increased, or is the non-conformity being increased on the setbacks by going from a rural to commercial?
It improves everything.
Okay.
But I should add, the owners of the orphan lot have begun the process, prior to this, they had begun the process of obtaining a building permit to put a small barn in the back or shed or something in the back of that property. And I think we need to honor that, even though the zoning will change, because it's already starting the process. Am I okay on that? Or is that going to create issues? Because the setbacks are not changing.
They're not changed or anything, but you can have an accessory structure in the commercial zone. Can you not?
Yes, but you can't, if you're smaller than an acre, I don't think you do any building.
We have a 1 acre requirement, so you're expanding the non-conformity.
Well, we are, because it was done prior to the zone change.
They started-
Well, I'm not talking about the zone change, but the building permit, and that's your question.
Right.
Yeah.
The zone change goes in.
Yeah, that's your question.
Maybe I'm being wrong, understands what's the zone change goes in, where's commercial zone, that would.
Was that parcel non-conforming with your residential zone?
It was,
Yes,
Even
Yeah.
in the rural residential.
yes, it requires an acre
You
lot.
couldn't have expanded the non-conforming.
No, because C's are allowed though, but I don't know. If they don't require an acre, if there's already a structure there.
Can't be expanding the structure or adding accessory structures.
Did you say can or cannot?
Cannot, it shouldn't be. Expanding the existing structure on a non-conforming parcel or adding another structure.
You can't add another structure?
A separate,
How's that then comply, how do we comply with the state rules on auxiliary developments then?
What about it?
Because you can't deny a homeowner from doing that, so what do we do if they want a small lot like that and they want to add?
I know they said we can't, I know the state said we cannot deny an internal accessory dwelling unit. Did it say we can't deny an ex, yeah.
Not external.
it's just internal?
I guess.
But state law also says you can't expand a non-conforming use. So those two statutes in state law would contradict each other, I would think. I don't know how that works, but unless they were going to do something that attached to their existing structure, then they could maybe call it an internal, what this new statute was, but that's not what they're doing, and I don't know if you can.
Yeah, it'll probably only be the same as the koozie house where they built a shed and they have one
A little,
connector. I know, it's stretched.
And one of my, I think I raised it at the last meeting, is the problem with our one size commercial fits everything. And I think that's a problem because this place, it would be ideal if they even went to commercial and wanted to put a professional real estate office in there. I mean, it's an ideal use for that parcel. And I know a lot of other communities have limited commercial. Springdale does, Tarkerville does. They don't have one size fits all. And then maybe you can address those issues through a limited commercial. So it's one thing I think the planning board should look at and we should look at is adding a limited commercial zone and maybe address some of those issues through the limited commercial zone.
Yeah, because this isn't going to be the first one. I know we looked at that night. There's at least 6, possibly 7 other parcels on the west side that are non-conforming and are going to be trapped by commercial as the commercial zone expands. Always rezone. So, but I know Cameron's working on something because he's ahead of the game always. So. Cameron, limited commercial.
Okay, so Crystal has advised me that the next ordinance number in line is 2022-07. So that is what this ordinance number would be, 2022-07. So we're assigning the next number in line and we're adding the whereas that I read off. So if we're ready to move on with this, then let's, I'll take a motion to.
Do you want
approve.
public comment?
Oh, yes, any public comment? Sorry. Thank you. I'm still trying to remember to ask that after every item. I take it there's no public comment. Okay, so I'll take a motion on this item.
I move that we approve ordinance number 2022-07 with a whereas added as stipulated by the mayor.
I'll second. Misty?
Yes.
Leroy?
Aye.
Jean? Aye. Oh, okay. Paul?
And I really struggled with this because I was at the planning board meeting. I heard the dissenting vote, which was Cameron, and I understood the reasoning he based it on, based on a comment by a citizen of continuing in nonconformity. But we have some detrimental reliance on fact of how we wanted them to process this application. So I will say yes, aye.
Okay, so motion passes to rezone this property. Okay, so next we are going to have 2 different public hearings. And the first one will be the continued public hearing from last month discussing fee schedule changes on the rates for renting Heritage Town Square. So I need a motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So comments from the public, since this is a public hearing. And you will see that we attached, where is it, Crystal? The proposed rates?
Well, she's putting those, to clarify, they're not proposed. This is a starting point.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
As you guys can tell, I love this old building, but I have struggled and struggled and struggled about this rate thing. When we first started the renovation, our first priority was to save the building. The second was to have a place for town council. Both of those we are doing, and we have done, and we are doing, but we also needed to have a community center. And And now we need one even more, that the building up on the hill isn't there or usable. But these rates have been a kind of a real mystery to me, actually. I just wanted to state that, in my opinion, Stacy and Becky have done a great job in taking care of the building. I don't think it's quite time to fire them yet. In my opinion, we need some semi-professional people that are in charge of protecting the building. They've been really good at booking and making sure that the town staff knows of things that need to be taken care of. They're willing to be on call 24/7. And I'm really afraid that our town staff is already stretched as far as they can be, and I don't think they have the time and the whereas, whatever, to take care of everything that Stacy and Becky have been doing. So I just jotted down some thoughts. And I don't know as I ought to go through them. I don't think I have time. That's why I printed this out and gave it to you. So I think we ought to lower the local rates because we pay taxes here, and a lot of us can't afford those other things. I think that people should have special consideration if like my granddaughter, whatever, wants to have her reception here. We can maybe set up a board to decide whether or not they fit the bill, if you know what I mean. I truly believe that this is an A #1 facility. I think it will, the features that it has compares with many that are charging more than this. We've got some wonderful things here that other people don't even have and are charging more. So I think we need to let the town square pay for its own way as much as we can. I don't think that we need to let non-local people come in and use this for a nominal fee. Then we won't have room for the local people. As you can see, my thoughts are a little scrambled because I keep fluctuating, but if you would please look at my numbers and know that, yeah, I would be glad to help in any way I can.
Cameron Spendlove. My thoughts on this rate schedule would be that we just eliminate the resident fee that you have up there at the $7.50, and then the hourly rate that should be for residents only. So, and then you could max that hourly rate out at 10 hours for the whole day, but that would be for residents only. And then non-residents would just have to pay the day fee, or you could add a half-day fee for non-residents.
Don't walk away. I need you to say again what you were proposing for the rates.
Okay, so for the rate, I think that on the second line where it has a resident/non-resident fee, that's the day fee. I think you should eliminate the resident day fee and only have a non-resident day fee. I don't, $8.50, whatever the proposed is, it doesn't matter to me. And then give them a half-day fee, which would be a couple $100 less. Not half the rate, but a few $100 left for a half day. Where it says Heritage Town Square hourly rate, that should be hourly rate for residents, and eliminate the minimum number of hours. Or the maximum number of hours, excuse me.
Are you looking at the section that says current rates?
For line 4, it says $40 an hour.
Yes, okay, for non-residents.
For residents only. And eliminate the 3-hour maximum. Thank you.
All right, I think there's definitely a positive move forward. This is Sean Emmett. Part of the reasons I think just this is, I think there needs to be more local use in the building again. And it's just kind of been priced out of that for the locals. Also, originally this was, the main reason they needed somebody else to help out with this building was the cleaning and the bookings. The staff at that time didn't want to really do that or weren't doing those. And so they wanted to find somebody that could just do the cleaning and the bookings. So really, we were just supposed to be paying for the cleaning and the bookings. And it kind of morphed into something a little bit bigger, into more of a business. If the rates are lower, if anybody wanted to come in and help somebody with a wedding or so, they could actually have a business doing the wedding coordinating, and then they could book the building. So really, it's a matter of who is going to be in charge, who's going to be responsible. With that, I do like the pricing for the residents that is listed here. I do think some of the other rates for the non-residents would be still a little too high, mostly just the deposit rate. I think the deposit is a deposit. Usually you have a credit card on file anyways, so the deposit should just be the same across the board anyways. And we probably ought to review that to see if 300 is necessary. If you have a credit card on file, that's going to cover that anyways, and just let them know that, hey, the potential is there for us to reclaim any damages. And then also if it's somebody that's local and that's booking it, but yet it's somebody that from the outside that come in, a non-resident is basically using it, then how do we actually work that difference between that? So also I would suggest that along with this, we have a calendar that's on the website or somewhere that can be, we'll easily be able to add things to that calendar. So we as the residents don't have to come over and ask the people, hey, who are you and what's going on? And we just be able to look on the calendar and know what events are coming up. So I don't plan on doing some chainsawing on a Saturday night when everyone's over here partying. So thank you.
Bill Swenson, Desert Gardens area. I've never really seen much of this before, and I'm not going to probably address the $40 an hour that we're looking at, but I'm particularly seeing Pocketville Park and Falls Park as a use fee, and trying to understand if that's $25 a day for someone that wants to do a special event. Can you explain, maybe just information's sake, what that's all about?
It is $25 for the whole day, right?
For Pocketville Park,
Or Falls Park, either one.
I am actually not sure on that because I'm not a part of it.
It's a day, it is a day rate, $25 to reserve like the pavilions or tables.
Okay.
You can't just privately take the whole. park.
Right,
It's a
the
park.
whole park for $25, that seems a
The town
little,
park, people
low.
wanna reserve the picnic tables in the pavilion for a birthday party or something.
And so does that happen often? Probably at Town Park it does, I should
Town
say,
park more so
than Pocketville or Falls. As if and when
Boy
that,
Scouts and stuff do stuff over at town park, or birthday parties.
okay, and does someone oversee that to make sure, okay, that's your job, huh? Okay. Very clear, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Might as well chime in. So, Roman Wallace Gooch, and I just wanted to piggyback on what Cameron said, I think it's really important that this facility has a lot of local use, that it's really accessible. I think it will bring our community together, and I've had wonderful little events here for my family and things like that. So I hope it's a resource that we price low for residents and then really high for people who are not, because I think it will protect it.
Stacy Croft. I just wanted to say that we actually kind of went over this, and Becky and I really like the local changes. We feel like we could still provide a service with that and be able to help maintain the quality and the atmosphere that we've tried to help create. So I do feel like we do need to have a proof of residency. We do need to still go over verbiage in the contract to cover, all that's still new. And I know that that'll need to be approved again. And so I'd like to just ask that maybe Becky and I can, be a part of that process, just so that we can feel like we're on board. Obviously, we need to be on board with the contract when we're going over it with people. We had stated before that we actually split half of that fee. So we're not in this for profit. We're in it to help maintain this area. So I agree with the locals being able to have access to it, but we want to make sure it's still maintained and taken care of. Anyway, that being said, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Yes.
So you said that you thought you could work with
The local changes. The local changes on there, yes. I feel like that's a workable, where they've divided up into different areas. I still feel like we do need to do the out of town the way it is, because we actually are, like, we've done our research, we are priced quite low, especially for tables and chairs and all the stuff that we have to offer, and to be able to have that respect and things like that for people to come in. Also, the credit card on file, we have been talking about that for quite a while. We love that idea, and especially, I think I agree with the credit card on file. We shouldn't need a deposit. I'm not sure the legal jargon with that, but
There's some nice things there.
right. So
Do you feel like the local, not the local fee, the out of town fee, do you feel like it should go up?
it could go up. It really could. I know that they charge anywhere between 1,000 to, we can go over those numbers.
I felt like that was a little low.
It is low. It is low. Becky and I were talking about that. We actually took this over and COVID hit. Then we had all these restrictions and people were not really gathering. And now they're starting to gather, and we're getting quite a few more calls, at least once or twice a week. And I know Crystal probably has people. So I don't know whether to switch that. I know that we could do it. I just don't know if now's the time to do it.
We want to use it as a draw.
Right. We want to use it as a draw. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because we do have to the economy's, I feel like, I know we're getting move-ins and people, but I still feel like, did I say proof of residency? Yeah, I really think that that's important, because everybody's related to everybody around here. So I feel like, do you know what I mean? My brothers, cousins, uncles, aunt, whatever, wants to get that price. I feel like they need to be.
Do you feel like a water bill would work?
A what?
A water bill is sufficiently work?
A water bill?
Is that what you think?
Oh, yes. Yeah, a water bill. Yes. Anything that has a bill that shows that they're resident, like anything like the DMV would need, like type of thing. Yes. Yeah, I think that would be perfect. Okay.
Stacy?
Yes.
Oh, so how many out of non-residents would you say per year before COVID that we would get renting the place?
Becky did the numbers on that. Do you remember?
They barely got started.
Yeah, we
Okay.
barely got started. And
So-
honestly, we have more out-of-towners than we do have locals. Even before the remodel, we had more out-of-towners rent the building. Even when it was $20 an hour, we had more out of towners than the locals. And I'm sure people in the offices could. So, I think and that honestly, with the church gone, I feel like the locals use the church. So it's hard to give a fair number to that.
Okay. And then the other question was, when you say the local fees up there, but you're not agreeing with the nonprofit fee of zero.
Oh, and the nonprofit, I feel like, yes, I feel like the nonprofit fee, like humanitarian, I feel like they should be able to use the building. I do feel like someone needs to be, to sign the contract and be responsible, because I think that's where we have issues. We need to have somebody be in charge, because it leaves us open and vulnerable, to have people just moving things in, or, there's just issues. I think we need to have somebody sign.
So if it's at zero, that means the town would be subsidizing the nonprofit.
That would be up to the town too. So, but yeah. Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no more comments on this, then we can make a motion to close the public hearing and go back to the public.
Motion to close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
Okay, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, discussion by the town council.
Can I steal your mic?
Oh, yes.
So had a nice meeting with the two ladies yesterday, Becky and Stacy, regarding these fees. And I want to apologize publicly, because I think when I first brought this up, the intent behind what I was trying to do came across as, we're going to get rid of everybody and we're going to revamp this. And that's not the case. It's just trying to take care of things for the locals. And so we've had those discussions. But here's kind of what we came up with as a possibility. And I'm going to read this off the letter, and I hope I get it right. If I get it wrong, I'd ask these two ladies to suggest what I missed. We had this little meeting. This is kind of what we suggest might be good for the town hall. This is not addressing the parks. Yesterday we talked. I sent them an email to have it verified, but we didn't get time to get it back to everybody. So, okay, so here's what we kind of came up with that we think would work good. For locals, proof of residency required. Complete proof of residency, exactly like Stacy said. It can't be, I'm related to Gene Krause 3 generations back, whatever, and so I should get the discount. Credit card on file, regardless of whether it's a local or an out-of-stater or out-of-towner. If there's alcohol in the premises, we keep the alcohol charges in place. Then for the square itself, we break it into 3 rental groups. You have the old church in the bathrooms as group 1, kitchen in the bathrooms as group 2, and the open area in the bathrooms as group 3. So each of these areas could be rented separately for a local price of $20 per hour or $100 per day. So for example, if the renter wants to use the old church and the kitchen, bathrooms are always included with whichever unit you rent, because people got to use that. We don't want them peeing on the neighbors. They would, let's say they were getting the old church and the kitchen, they would pay $40 per hour and $200 for the day. If they rent all 3, they're paying $60 an hour or $300 for the whole part for the day for locals only. Talking with Stacy and Becky, one of the problems that we've got is when people get done, they don't know what to do with their trash. So we're suggesting maybe the council in the future can look at putting in a small dumpster on site. And then to help the ladies for last minute things that they need to do for the building. When the town guy comes through and he cleans everything up and it's 100 miles an hour wind, 5 minutes later, everything's a mess. So having a small pressure washer and a blower that we keep in the closet in here to where they can, last minute fix things up. And then setting a second lockbox in place to keep the kitchen isolated from, instead of having a key that opens everything. You have a key for this building in the bathrooms, and then the key for the kitchen in the bathroom separated in 2 different lock boxes. We thought nonprofit, humanitarian, donation to the building project, service to community, local funeral could have use of the building for free, but they still must have a credit card on file for when they're in the building, so that somebody doesn't break a window and say, forget this, I ain't paying it. The whole reason for the credit card on file is, and it isn't kept permanently, it's just kept for the event. But you can force charge a credit card if somebody tries to welch on the deal. But having the $300 deposit, to address what Sean is saying, is still a good thing, because some people don't want to be having stuff charged on their card. And if they don't want to do that, they could leave a cash deposit that could be withdrawn from if they fail to take the garbage or leave the kitchen a mess or whatever.
Gene, can I
Yeah, go
ask some
ahead.
questions about
Sure.
nonprofit humanitarian?
Yep.
What would constitute nonprofit and humanitarian?
Don't know, to be determined, but things that are gonna be nonprofit and humanitarian, I guess. Nobody's gaining money from it. There's no monetary gain from it.
No, I know, I realize that,
Right,
but
that's
then you have the issue of defining what those are and people taking advantage of those two categories. And we still subsidize an expense. So
Well,
that would be my concern. I just wanted to hear where you're at with it, and then we can.
well, a nonprofit would have a tax return showing it's a nonprofit. They have to file a tax return every year. So you could request that. A humanitarian, you'd have to, we have an humanitarian that meets here twice a month already. And they haven't filed anything. It's just a group of ladies that sew things for the hospital.
We also talked about having a clause in there, and this is all stuff that Heath's scrambling, I'm sure, to take notes on. We're going to have some kind of a clause in there that says if it's being seen as abused by the town, then that can be withdrawn for those individuals. So if somebody's coming in here and making a profit off it, renting the town constantly so no one else can use it, then the town reserves the right to say, yeah, we're going to cut you off.
And then is there a distinction between an out of a non-resident nonprofit
other.
versus a resident nonprofit?
Same as
Same
the
price?
We haven't had anybody come in that was nonprofit or humanitarian that I'm aware of from out of town, but it would be probably the same thing. If you can't show your proof of residency, then you're going to pay the fees, would be my guess. But again, showing that. They can.
Yes.
Yeah. So they can supply that documentation and, yeah. And then,
Boy Scouts of America is a 501c3.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of your religious organizations are 501c3.
Right.
So.
And you get something from the IRS, you get a little card.
yeah, they can show that.
You qualify as 501c3.
The
We also have
less,
schools that use this building too.
And-
During the summertime, we have, Springdale that comes down and tutors the local kids here. And they use this, for a couple hours a week to tutor kids.
I would think too, it's very common amongst municipalities to allow joint use of facilities without charge. I mean, if for some reason Hurricane Valley Fire District wanted to have a meeting up here in this building, we should let them not charge them. We would hope that if we ever needed to do anything, use any of their facilities and stuff like that, it's kind of a common. So that to me, the school district, stuff like that.
caucuses happen, things like that too. I think too, though, it's important that we have, I think it's important, well, there's one more thing I'll add on this, and then I wanted to add this piece on the end. We did discuss the calendar. It is going to be important that residents can see the calendar, but that's already kind of in the process. They work with Crystal to get that posted so that people can see. But you still got to come in and fill out the contract with the two ladies, so that we make sure we get a signature and all that. The last thing I was going to add was to do with it was something that you just said, and I was going to riff right off of you.
I mentioned that the IRS was into a card, it's 501c3.
That wasn't it.
Can I make a comment before I?
Yeah, give me time to think.
I was looking at this and I love what Jean wrote up, especially because she keep it. Might I suggest that we take a lead from Cameron on the simplicity of it, the $40 fee for residents, because it takes all of the guesswork out of the fact that truly we need 3 keys. Because you're wanting to do the outside and the bathroom as one fee, and then the building and the bathroom as one fee. So technically, to just make it simple, just put Heritage Town Square resident fees only, $40 an hour. And then put maybe a suggested 10 hours so we don't have it lapping into, you know what I mean? But that's just my suggestion on it all. I'm glad I got to talk to you guys because I was worried about the non-resident rate. I feel like it should be a little higher in my personal opinion, but if you guys are good with it, because it's something, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I don't want you to ever think that I personally was questioning that, because you guys were. But that's my thoughts on it. I think we should, I do like what we've got. So if you as a council, when I leave, decide that that's what we're going with, I'm good with it. However, I do think maybe we should take a kickoff from Cameron and just keep it simple, keep it straightforward, and just go that way with it with a $40 rate for local residents. It just keeps all of it simple.
My only concerns with that before you leave, since you're talking on it, is let's say you have a caucus meeting or you have a Boy Scout meeting and you have 10 people meeting here. Now they're paying for the use of the kitchen. They're paying use for all those fees that are being added on to cover those costs. Most people that are locals that are just doing like this humanitarian group, they really don't need to be using the kitchen. They really don't use the dance hall area, but they're going to be charged a higher rate. I don't think it's that big a deal to separate it. You have it on the contract as 3. So we have to buy two little lock boxes. I just don't see that as a big.
But 2 hours is $80. So. Boy Scouts is
Okay, I'm
nonprofit.
sorry. Throw something in that's not. I'm
Well,
just,
like for
it's
me,
a hypothetical.
for myself, if I was going to have a bar, let me put it in your own shoes. It's the easier way to do it. If you're gonna have a birthday party, or like I was going to use it at one point, but we may have gone over the 3-hour max. But I would have been willing to pay the $120 because it was an event where I was going to have my entire family here, and it was just because we hadn't seen each other in like a year and a half, so we were gonna have a party. I was willing to pay it. At $40 now to $120, so that I have a place here where I can use. I may not have used the building. I may have used outside, but I had the option of a kitchen if I needed cleanup.
I'll give you an example of one, because this is one that kind of happened with me. So we did the concealed weapons permit class here. Right? So we don't need any of that other stuff. We use the bathrooms in this building and that's it. The guy that was coming down did a serious discount. It barely covered his gas to come down and do the project. But if it hadn't been for Monica at the time giving me the discount just a little bit, it was 3 hours or the whole day. I would have had to rent it for the whole day because it's a 4-hour class. So to me, you're paying a whole bunch of money and so that you can provide a service, but there's still money involved, so it needed to be rented.
Right. Okay. Well, I understand where you're
So
coming
that's what I'm
from,
saying. If you do it by the hour, it's very simple. And
as a
you know,
whole,
8
though,
hours, it's 100.
as a whole, though, $40 just makes it simple on the town. It makes it simple on everybody trying to figure things out. But that's, again, I am content with what you had before because I did review it and I liked it, and I'm glad you two ladies had some comment in it. And I have to go. I'm sorry, you guys.
I looked at my notes. The only thing I could imagine I said had to do with non-resident rates staying high. I mean, I bumped my notes of everybody who talked, and I can't imagine what I said. You can't remember.
No, you probably something that sparked
Okay, I thought.
that very, very small flame in my head.
Okay. Okay, so if there is no one else with comments, then we can, did we go back and close the public hearing already? We did. We're in the town discussions, okay. That's true. There we go, okay.
I kind of agree with Stacy that we should keep the rates that she has proposed for the out-of-town people and then go with the rates that you put down for, for the 3 of you came up for the in-town. I agree with that. I just kind of like to sit here and think. While you go talking and arguing.
I'll just say I kind of like the out-of-town rates proposed by Charlene. I'll just throw that out there. We did, but I'll let you talk, Darwin.
I was in Hurricane a while back, and some guys were drinking a little beer down at the county fairgrounds on Purgatory. The police came and shut them down. In the Hurricane, you can't have alcohol on the city-owned property, parks or recreation. And I don't know. I know Kim loves beer, but I never cared for it. I wonder if you ought to consider that. Thank you.
I'll say I'm in agreement with the mayor on what you said there, but I asked them 2 days, and they said they'd like to keep it this rate for now.
Okay.
But I said, let's make that raise up over 1,000, piece or at least 1,000. I'd be fine with raising that.
Okay.
But if they want to wait until we kind of get a feel for how post-COVID is going, I'm fine with raising it. And I'm just fine with that suggestion too. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm sure some kind of
And at weddings, some people like to do champagne. And the one other comment that I think a couple people mentioned, and it's not part of the fee resolution, but we need to address at some point in the future, is that being online, the scheduling being online. I think there's a couple members that talked about that. And then we have some other issues that came out of the public hearing last month that we need to talk about as a commission, is what type of rules and regulations need to govern this as far as music, noise, and so on. Because the neighbors here need to also be protected from abuse of it. And that's separate from the fee resolution, but I don't want us to forget that. That's why I mentioned it, because it'll be in the minutes. We need to come back and address that, whether it's through the application they signed or through town regulations.
Noise, or a sunset on time when things have to happen as far as noise goes, but that should be reiterated strongly in the contract. If there, and we talked a little bit, we didn't really settle on that either. If we wanted to, so right now, this quiet time gets at 10 p.m. is the quiet time, but it takes people half hour, 45 minutes to clean up. So we want to move the close down time to 9:30 so that they have closed and moved out by 10 o'clock and things like that in the neighborhoods.
So maybe on another work session, we may want to discuss this, or a meeting, so the public can comment on it. Set it up for an agenda in the future. That's what I was going to say, yeah.
So Crystal just reminded me that I need to read Lori's letter. But what I'm going to do, because Lori has, her letter includes both fees and the impact. And we're talking about separating those two issues. I'm just going to read her section on the fees only, and I'll save her comments on impact for whenever we talk about impact. Okay? Okay. I mean, no point in reading all that if we're not discussing that tonight. This is from Lori Rose. I was a member of the Old Church Committee who worked to raise concern for and funds necessary to restore the old church and grounds. Our committee was led by Charlene Hall and benefited from the energies and talents of numerous community members. I have included a flyer that accompanied some of our funding applications, illustrating the importance and goals of the restoration work. Then she has a heading, rental fees. When we applied to the Community Impact Board for funding, we were on the verge of retiring 20 years of debt service on our water system at an annual cost of $6,000. The debt we took on to fund the completion of Heritage Town Square cost the same annually, so the debt burden to the town was seen as a non-issue. I recall some discussion of occasional renting of the facility for private uses, including weddings. But at the time, it was not felt that renting out the facility was a priority. The purpose of the restoration was to create a meeting space open parentheses, other than the cramped town office, close parentheses, and to revive the old church back to its historic role as a community center. I believe that any private use should help defray the cost of cleaning and maintenance, but that local citizens should receive a substantial discount. Out-of-towners wishing to rent the facility should pay a rate that honors the building, helps ensure user respect, and brings in revenue to help pay the costs of long-term maintenance. I do not personally believe we should be overly pursuing private rentals of the facility, primarily available for community functions. Civic groups/activities should be able to use the building essentially free of charge. Perhaps the use of the kitchen could have its own fee. And the rest of this has to do with neighborhood impact. So that's what she had to say about rental fees. Okay.
This is something for future debate, but since we're on fees, we could talk about it, and it was brought up by her, so I feel justified. I think we only owe just a little over $10,000 left on this building. And I think
140,000.
140, you did find out, okay. I do think we ought to take a chunk out each year and just get the thing paid off, but that's me, so. Not in 1 year, obviously, but we ought to start thinking about what we could do to, I know we get a donation, but it would be nice to own some of our own debt a little bit too, in my opinion, so.
So you're proposing that somehow we fund over a period of years, making some lump sums to retire the debt? Okay. Okay, so what we will need to do if we nail down fees, which is what you were wanting to do, then after this, what the way this will end is once we come up with fees, then we will make a proposal that we do a resolution for next month that we will vote on the resolution to, then the fees are set in stone. Okay. All right. So, my thought is that, let's see, I put the letter away. Oh, here it is. So if I understand this letter that you wrote confirming your conversation with the two ladies yesterday, that basically you were proposing different fees for residents, but the non-residents would stay the same. And then you would have free use of the building for nonprofit humanitarian service organizations and funerals. Correct? That's essentially it?
Donation. Those who did substantial donations to the building. I think the one that is made the payment for the building over the years, if you wanted to use it in the past, they just helped us so fast to somehow be back.
Okay. So the conclusion of this, what is being proposed by you and the two ladies, is $20 per hour for each unit, or 100 per day for each unit. And then the out-of-town fees stay the same. And is there a deposit required? And so we concluded no deposit, just having the credit card on file?
I think there should be a deposit, but I don't know if we discussed, I can't remember. Or you could leave it up to them, they understand that if there's a problem, someone charge them the card.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, the
So-
advantage of deposit is you can run the credit card so you know. If you just solely have the credit card.
They could cancel it.
You can't cancel it, it can be forced charge. I've worked for several businesses where if somebody tries to sneak out of it, you can have a forced charge to credit card bill, all of that.
Okay.
But I don't know how that's set up. That's something we did. Rental car agencies, hotels do that. They can charge your card, you know. So, yeah, that's the only reason I want a credit card. Well, I'm recommending a credit card. So that the $300, then you reach fire damage. That doesn't cover. If it's school out of town, you can still.
You're not on the same page. then.
Okay, Paul, any objection to what is laid out in this confirming letter that Jean sent to the ladies?
The
Other
only
than
thing
the
I would
nonprofit?
add The only thing I would add to it, of course, I want to see the language of the resolution, but the only thing I would add to it is what Heath brought up about other government entities wanting to use it. So they would get the nonprofit rate, and then we tie the nonprofit to 503C.
Leroy, any comments based on this letter?
No, I agree with that, plus what Paul added.
Okay,
And that the fees stay the same for non-residents.
okay. Yeah, that's that. Well, what I'm going to propose is that we take a motion that we will agree with everything that's in your letter here. I'm not sure it says anything about the fact that the out-of-town fees stay the same. I don't see that on there. Okay. And that will, yes,
I'm going to take an attempt at a motion.
I'm sorry?
I can take an attempt at making a
Okay,
motion right
go
now.
for it.
So I move that we bring back a resolution with the fees listed in what Jean's letter, is that the way to describe it?
Mhm.
For proposed rates for residential fee schedule and for nonprofit to also require proof of residency along with nonprofits demonstrating their 501c3 and government entities in the county can use the facility at the nonprofit rate and keep the current rates
For
for non-residents. Did I cover everything with the motion?
I think so.
A second.
Funeral and service to community.
Yes, both of those two. Okay.
And Leroy seconded. So
Aye.
that was Paul saying aye. Jean? Jean, aye. Leroy? Aye. Okay. All right. Sure. You're going to come up with all the whereases and everything else. He can review it.
No, it works fine because we're going to bring it back on the resolution. Gives us time to think about it, look at the wording. The public gets a chance to look at the wording. So I'm
Okay.
all right with it.
All right. On to item G. So, oh, no, sorry, F. I need a motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing regarding the budget. I second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. So we are now in a public hearing for the budget. Is there anyone in the audience that has a comment on the budget? Anything you want to ask?
Before we have comments, I want to clarify that the budget that was posted for the public to look at was the budget for 2019 through 2020. So you didn't have access to the actual budget, which was not completed until about 3 hours ago. So, but we'll take comments for any things you think need to be added to the budget next year.
Are we going to keep the public hearing open to next week when we approve the budget?
That's
We're
what
not
I would say,
approving the
yes.
budget.
No, he asked if we would keep the public hearing open until next month when we approve it. Yeah.
People who haven't had a chance, 24 hours in advance.
Right, they could have the time to look. Okay. Sure, we can do that.
And the final budget will be posted, I think, on the 11th the next month.
Okay, it's very rare. Oh, Cameron. Okay.
Didn't want to interrupt anyone. So for the budget items, I just had a couple of thoughts for the upcoming budget. In my opinion, I think that the budget should focus heavily on two items, another water tank for the city and repairing the old cast iron water lines in the old part of town. I think that we're in a situation here if we did have a disaster, an earthquake or something, we could easily be cut off from life if that happens. And then this old water line just has to be replaced. It's got to get done before we end up having to tear up the whole town for necessity because of leaks. So I think the new, and then I see down next item for your budget items, the dark skies. I do not see, for me, I don't see advantage to the city of spending the money to pursue a dark sky certification. I just don't believe that is worth the town's finances right now. I think that those finances can better be in other ways while the town pursues ordinances that does protect the night sky without the certification. So that's my feeling on that part of the budget that you have coming up. And an alternative to pursuing the dark skies, I think, because money can only be spent in so many areas for so many purposes, I think the town would far better be served in looking at putting utilities underground, like electrical and phone lines underground. I think the money spent for dark sky certification could better serve the town by looking at doing things like that. Thank you.
Bill Swenson again. I'll follow up on that dark sky item of discussion here. I think it's important that we look at the costs. I know you brought up some savings of the monthly bills, but none of the costs were discussed, I don't believe. So that might be important, very important consideration, because maybe the money could be spent in other ways, partially or wholly. I'm a proponent of dark skies. Of course, I was on the committee that did the survey in our neighborhood, and they are a value. They're a commodity. They are something that people seek out, especially in the tourism industry. And Zion National Park and the surrounding area of our our public lands, people seek it out. It's a selling point. So if we can pull it off, if we can do some improvements and follow some of the ordinances, of course, I think it's a good thing. But if we can look at those numbers, I think it's money well spent, as long as we don't empty the budget in another area that may be, in need as well in another way. The thing I was going to come up with before that was the BMX track, electricity. I'm trying to understand, first of all, the numbers, and probably, importantly is the numbers, but just as importantly is why. How often is the BMX facility used? Is there plans to use it more? Are there plans to encompass more use of the BMX park? I know there was discussions a couple of months ago about a proposal application from a nonprofit that wanted to stage their special event partially or wholly there. And there was kind of a give and take, like, well, we don't do that. We don't do special events. Well, why don't we? Especially if we're going to spend the monies to go up to the BMX park. So if it's warranted, I see it as a good option, but the use, is it going to be payable? Speaking of, my final comment, and probably most important one, I believe, was that I went on a field trip with some personnel out at the BLM last Saturday. Actually, it was kind of a hike up to see a John D. Lee inscription on the mountain. I can't say more than that because it's kind of a secret area up here. And some of you locals probably know about it. Now I do too. But as a part of that, we looked at dispersed camping beginning at the BMX facility, and I was set back in my shoes. I had never seen, and you see it probably quite a bit from your house, that number of vehicles right there on the flats in the barren ground, just, you know, using the public lands. Now, I'm not saying they're out of bounds. I'm just saying maybe there's an opportunity. I know there was discussions years ago of a parcel of land up there that the BLM was ready to sell to the town of Virgin under some type of circumstance that there would be a campground developed, but it'd be a low profile campground, not a lights and bells and whistles and swimming pools, but more than likely not even electricity. But then I went, wait a minute, if we run electricity up through there to the BMX park, maybe that campground, if it were to become a reality up there, and it was discussed with the BLM back in the day, that there could be power to it, and that's enough. People can bring their own water. I'm a camper, I'm an RVer. If you got one or the other, you're in heaven. You know, you get especially water, but we can't have it all. So maybe there's a win beyond the BMX track already if we were to explore the possible opportunity of not the town doing a BMX park, but the town overseeing someone that does do it, you know, for a nominal profit, but not to let's blow it out of the sky and put in trees and plants and lights and all that. Keep it a low profile public land similar to what we have being abused out on the west corridor. But make it organized and maybe have some electricity. So just food for thought.
Was the BLM going to sell that, or were they going to lease it? Like they do?
They were going to sell it. It was disposal property. I was with a nonprofit down there for 2 years, so I was there 3 days a week. So I really got to know a lot of the inner workings and talk and things that were going on. But Shauna Dowell, who is a realty specialist, is the latest contact. And back in the day, they were ready to sell it. And there was going to be some constraints, I believe. It was going to be like similar to Town Park, maybe, Falls Park, where the BLM owns the park, but the town is a partner in the park with minimal cost incurred. The BLM was ready to sell the land. I don't know about to the town, somehow dispose of the land. Possibly someone comes in, does the proper bidding procedures and the right, levels of development. Keep it an outdoorsy park. I don't know what you would call it. What all these, I could go on and on about what we saw going up North Creek Road. It's nothing to do with this, but there's definitely a problem happening and a lot of us know about it. And it doesn't just involve the town of Virgin. It involves the BLM, the Washington County Conservancy District, the Health Department. A multitude of agencies could get involved and really make that a kind of a neat area for people to come and camp to. And again, I think we have an opportunity, not just with, let's call it the BMX RV park, you know, just for fun, or we have another smaller one up there that we partner with government agencies or SITLA. SITLA wouldn't do that. They just want to sell their land. That's
Well,
okay.
I know at one point they had talked about putting that land up for sale. Did they remove it from that process? Yeah.
The rec planner that was showing us the area, he didn't know. He was going to check it because he was kind of set back like, wow, there's like 5 or 6, 7 units here. And 3 were buses. And, you know, to me, it was because there's always been the one over in the trees. There's always one up here. And by the way, when Mosquito Cove got closed, and a lot of you might not know it's Mosquito Cove, some of us do, used to be halfway between here and Rockville. It got closed in 2009. In fact, I think I still have that out here, but I had it for a meeting earlier. And the comments that I read on that, and looking at this yesterday, just doing some research, were, well, the next campground is up North Creek, just between Virgin and the River Bridge. on Colab Terrace Road.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it'll probably be good until the BLM finds out about it. And that was said in 2009. So it's getting to be sort of a new Mosquito Cove, but I can't, call it that. So it is public lands, and hopefully
Okay.
getting back to the BMX track, I think there may be some possibilities there. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Danny.
Hello, Dan Croft. Hey, just a couple comments on that area up there. I can attest that the BLM is aware of all the camping up there. Our sheriff's deputies do go up there and check on those camps. I myself have had them come up and remove several abandoned trailers that I located up there by the river. So they are very familiar with that. There is a section of land up there that is just south of the Danny Fields, kind of in the tree that belongs, I believe, to the Cornelius family. And my understanding is those people, because I've confronted several of them there in the past, they say they've been given permission by the Cornelius family to camp there. And so I don't know, I don't think there's anything we can do with that. Or the gentleman up farther north, I guess he owns that property where a lot of people are.
Over on the
camping.
right when you're going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff up there. But again, I just wanted to say the BLM and the sheriff's office is very aware of that area, and they keep pretty good tabs on it, so.
Okay, great. Good enough.
To my knowledge, there's been no change on the BLM's decision to auction off that property around the BMX park. That's still approved and finished. They just haven't announced the time as to when they will do that. Whether the politics in Washington have kind of put a slowdown on that, like they have the Northern Corridor, the Red Cliffs Corridor. I'm not sure. A big thanks to people like Dan and Danny and Water Conservancy District. They've removed the big trailers that were abandoned there for years. They put a gate, the Water Conservancy District has, across their property. And they've helped clean up some BLM land with some RV campground stuff that's still kind of there. And I bring this up because as I go through there quite a bit and run through there and hike through there and kind of monitor it, I work with the park. The park ranger is the BLM's ranger for this end of the county now. And know him and have cruised with him and shown him areas where we have issues over there. But the residents or the landowners there are trying to make some changes. And I hope we as a city, as a town, can appreciate them as neighbors and the money they're spending for the stuff that they've had to clean up and the things they're trying to do to make it better. There is one abandoned vehicle that came about in the last 6 months. It's a pink RV. Anybody seen that one?
No.
It's a motorhome. It's kind of hidden. But if you take that first exit into the heavy camping area on the north side, just as you come up the hill on Colab Terrace Road, it's the 1 mile marker where you can pull down towards the river. There's always camping people in there, and we work with the BLM to try and keep them compliant with the time frames that they can camp and how long. But back behind one of the hills, there's a big pink RV. We've had trouble finding who owns it. They took off the plates and it's been stripped and completely a mess over there. So as a town, we have signs there that still say $1,000 fine, Town of Virgin, and Springdale Police Department. That sign is still there that warns people of that. But I would hope that we would take some interest in that. And as far as the BMX park itself is concerned, I think that and I mean, Paul's going to address this, but I really like the idea of the town creating a master plan for parks.
Okay.
And
So
my 2 minutes
What do you
is
think about the
past.
electricity going to the BMX track? Because
Pardon?
What was your thought about the electricity going to the BMX track? Because we were about to budget for that.
I'm not sure who's encouraged that. I don't see where there is a generator there that provides the power now. And for the Wednesday night activities that are going on tonight. And that generator provides that power at this point. I think that the power to the park should be part of your overall master plan for parks. And that master plan should have priorities of what needs to have money spent on it.
All right, so we'll get to master plans for parks another day. All right, anybody else on the budget? Don't talk about anything that is not the budget.
Budget, Darlene Pope. I support the dark sky as a relatively not huge expense that pays for itself and then benefits the town in perpetuity.
Focused on the budget.
Just want to make a plug for activities. I hope there's plenty of money in there for that. The last few years, there has not been something for, I know Gina was in charge of the princess pageant, and I haven't had one of those for a few years. So I don't know if you'll need to throw some money in there later, but you might as well take a look at that because they moved the fair and that makes it a little more difficult. But throw some money in there for that.
Dan Kropp, I'm in support of a contract with the sheriff's office.
Thank you. I bet you are.
While we're on that discussion, we have a contract with the Sheriff's Department to provide additional patrol, maybe additional 6 hours a week.
Yeah, that.
Of specific patrol time in there, so that's an expense, we pay above, we pay that to the Sheriff's Department, so that we get additional patrol above and beyond what they would normally do out here, and that's just something we need to consider, whether we want to continue, whether we want to increase that, decrease it.
Yeah, we have a contract. Right now, we pay nothing.
I was gonna say, I don't think we have.
Right now, we pay nothing.
I think that's being proposed.
If we wanted to.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's proposed.
We're not.
Yeah, we're
that's
gonna
being
talk about it.
proposed.
Okay, is there anyone else in the public that has a comment? If not, we're going to close the public hearing so the town council can talk about the budget.
Not close the public hearing.
Oh,
but
sorry,
continue it.
sorry. Yes, continue to next month.
I make a motion that we continue the public hearing until next month's regular meeting.
What'd you say? Yeah, on the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? So the motion was made by Paul and seconded by Jean. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, so now we're into the public meeting. So
I
that
make a
was,
motion that we open the public meeting.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, okay. So on the budget, I had listed down here these things that some of the people were making comments about that I wanted us to discuss whether or not we wanted to budget for these. And Leroy and I, when we had our meeting with Candace earlier, we went ahead and kind of made some adjustments on the budget. So if you were to look at the brand new budget that we just printed off this afternoon at 3:00, we included in that money to do the electricity at the BMX track, the lighting for the dark sky, and the sheriff. These three of these 5 things we have here to talk about. We went ahead and put them in there, but if we end up saying no, then we can pull them back out of the budget since it's next month that we'd be voting on it. So,
And I would like to add into that a master plan for parks, open space, trails, and recreation. so we can start to develop that planning process, create the plan, so we know what to put in capital improvements plans for the future. Uh, And I struggle, sorry, Mayor, you were talking about things you already put in. I'd like to add a discussion about master plans.
Okay. All right. So for the electricity at the BMX track, since that's first on the list, the Rocky Mountain Power came out and looked at the BMX track, and they gave us a bid of $35,000 to run electricity to the BMX track. And they have a map here of where this, how they would get this to the BMX track, to the concession stand. And this, from this map, they are, this right here is right by Kent Peterson's house, because that's where the road comes down and then switches, there's Kent's house. So there's an electric pole right there. I guess, is there?
No, I think they're showing that everything's underground there. So
Well-
they'll pull up from the underground electricity.
Okay, so it's not a pole, but there is something right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's underground, electricity's underground.
Okay, so they were going to attach right there, and then the town would have to pay for we would have to do the digging the trench and then laying the conduit. That would be on us. And then Rocky Mountain Power would come and run the power through the conduit that we laid. And then at the concession stand right here is then where we would have the electric company, not Rocky Mountain Power, but Hedgehog or whoever, to put on a panel that they would attach. And that's how we would get the electricity out to the BMX track. And so Rocky Mountain Power estimates $35,000 for that job. And we have a bid from Hedgehog for the panel that would be $8,000, the electric panel work. The only thing I don't know, when I talked with Rocky Mountain Power the day they came out, the rough estimate that the guy was giving us included the $8,000. He had estimated $8,000 for the panel, which is what Hedgehog had bid. And so what I don't know is if the $35,000 that he told us here includes that $8,000 or not. Okay.
So 8,000 would be for whatever service, 400 service, 600.
Okay. Okay.
I got a couple of questions, because I'm not against this by any means, so I don't want that to come across the way. I think at some point it's gonna happen anyway, but I think 35,000 plus the 8,000 is likely to be about half of what your total costs are by the time you consider the trenching and laying everything in, as well as we have no idea what the then will be processed. Is it gonna be like our water tank where we wait for 2 years?
Mhm.
So maybe we ought to wait on that this year and see if we have to make them very long once we get all of our data together. Be my
Okay.
suggestion.
All righty.
I'm not against it, like, 80,000.
More homework to do. Okay.
If BLM considers that to be a full disturbance, they may require a NEPA study to be done.
That takes years.
And then you add in the fact, what we're going to be discussing is capital improvements. So we're at that stage is, which ones do we jump ahead before we create our capital improvements list? And I know we're going to have to jump that list on some items. And then some items we probably need to wait. This would fit in, I think Kent mentioned it, with my proposal that we do a master plan of parks. And since the BLM or the BMX park is part of the park system in general, we do a master plan, and that would be part of the planning process. Then we could place it on the capital improvements list 1, 2, 3 years down the road if we need to explore those costs. And so maybe this is one of them that I don't think I would want to jump ahead of our CIP.
I'm okay with jumping ahead,
If
here's where my little comment comes in. rebuilds, right, there could be an opportunity to close off some of that mess up there and move it into something else, if there's some agreement made. But whatever agreement we make with the BLM, I think it needs to have a caveat, when you do something here, you close that down. Because since I've been here, my biggest pet peeves have been that area out there where I used to go and play as a kid, and those cracks are now filled with toilet paper and garbage, and this stuff up here. We've got enough housing coming into this area that I think it's time to BLM steps forward and says, we're gonna.
Yeah, we shouldn't ignore opportunities. And the other question I have is, there are some other boxes, my understanding, along the road. Have we explored whether that would be less expensive than coming off that?
You mean on the Colon Terrace Road?
It's my understanding, just
The guy from Rocky Mountain Power said he was going to work with the closest place. That is the closest place where he can tie him.
Yeah, yeah.
Where you were asking if he could tie him.
Yeah, are there any other boxes where,
The other one was over at the trash dump.
okay.
So,
Would that be easier and cheaper to come through
so
that
there's
way?
3 boxes.
The if he came from the trash dump, they were gonna have to tunnel under Colon Terrace Road and then continue on. And we were gonna have to pay for the tunnel.
You're trading one agency for another, you're BLM or Water Conservancy, because they own both sides of Colon Terrace Road all the way up, so.
So I'm not sure I was right, Paul, when I was talking, but there's 3 boxes, electrical boxes, surface boxes there. One in the cul-de-sac, which we use, and then one at the corner of 385 and 645 north, and 385 east. So there's one right there where Gene talked about the Rocky Mountain Power, putting the power from that point, at the gate basically, up to the BMX park, rather than down by the box. I don't think they have to go into the cul-de-sac. I think that the line is already at that corner.
Okay, if we are putting this off, we don't need to continue.
We don't need to continue that discussion, right?
Happy now? Okay, thank you. He's like, move along. Okay, so we will put off the electricity, so Leroy, we will talk with Candace about that.
I'll let her know.
What we did.
I'll let her know.
Okay,
Well, she wasn't gonna add it until I told her to add it.
that's true.
Feel all right about that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's why I asked the mayor to give me permission to start that study on the water systems and the roads. I think those take priority over the BMX electricity.
All right, so the next thing I just wanted to point out about the RAP tax. In the past, yes, the one that's going in the general fund is not supposed to be going in. It's been going into the general fund since 2015. Yeah. So I had Crystal run a thing here to show how much money we have received since 2015 in RAP tax. And we printed it off here, and it shows that we have received $78,000 in RAP taxes that have all gone into the general fund when they are supposed to go for recreation, art, and funds. So what I want to do is, starting in July, I want the RAP tax not to go into the general fund, and I want it to go into a fund for recreation, art, and parks. And we can use it for any of these 3. And there's all sorts of things we could add with, once it's in the actual RAP fund where it should be, people can come in and approach the town and say, hey, I have an idea for an art project. I would like to do X. And the town then decides, sure, we can give you that much money. You can do that. We'll fund it. There's been all sorts of art projects. In fact, the RAP tax is a big reason why you see so much nice artwork in St. George, that we see it, we're all like, wow, I wish we had something like that here. Well, if we were just using the RAP tax correctly, we could have. And so the RAP tax was a 10-year tax. It was passed it started in 2015. So we've only got 3 years left, and then of RAP tax money, unless they put it on valid again before 2025, then for the county. If it comes on the ballot, then it passes, then we would continue on. But right now, at this point, it's sunsets in 3 years. So that's all we know.
Do we have an obligation to transfer that $78,000 to the right fund?
I guess we can't show that we haven't spent out of general fund $78,000.
For those purposes?
That's what I want to ask, is there a way we can isolate, because we did a pump track, we did that whole part there.
Yeah.
It's all been done.
Yeah, we can do a large majority of that if we have the pickleball courts put into that.
Yes, that should be deducted that we've already done, because 78,000 since that time, it's an inaccurate number, that's just the number we're saying, that's what we collected, we've done a lot of parking.
We have.
No, I just meant this is how much money we have gotten from the county.
Yeah, but we've spent money on the parks since then that could have been RAP tax used.
But from an accounting standpoint, we need to be putting those funds into a separate.
Yeah, right. And you asked Candace to do that today, didn't you?
I did talk to her about it, but I think it's another thing we'll follow up on, like with this.
Okay, I'll follow up when I do this, okay.
So what we may have to do is show that we transferred the 78, if I heard Heath right, and then also then show that that money then was used to pay for those qualifying items, yeah.
Which we can probably come up with all sorts of stuff that uses the money. But
Again, if we've spent $78,000 on park projects and things like that, we're ultimately fine. I think we can justify, but our receipt of those funds, we are committing what we'll use them for. It's not, when we are able to.
because there is a state code that specifically addresses RAP tax and what.
Is it still being received?
Yes, we have,
So,
we can have receipts.
then what we ought to do is open that other account and start making sure that it's funded in there, and then bring an assessment of what we've actually spent before we move any other monies.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to move money out of the general account into the
Just-
general account that we created. As long as we can show that we've spent that commensurate amount of money since
Right.
2015.
I can ask Candace to go back through the history.
Just like we have for things like this, we can do something like that.
And since we're talking about RAP tax, would that cover a park recreation open space trail plan?
I don't know, we'll have to ask. I think it can.
See, yeah, we've done a lot of things to the park, we've replaced refrigerators and the building's been painted and,
There's a lot of the stuff that
yeah.
we've done as the parks that we can totally account for with this. It's just that it needed to have a different account.
Right, it needed to come out of general.
Okay, so we will talk to Candace about setting up a separate fund and all that money, funds now will go into that separate fund and we'll figure out how we need to account for it. Okay, next is the dark sky, where I had, I just wanted us to talk about this. We got this from Rocky Mountain Power, as I mentioned earlier. There would be $8,300 to change, switch out every single light fixture in Virgin with this new, what they call dark sky compliant. That's, they call it this, and they say we would pay for it in 3.5 years because our electric bill will go down by 45% with these new fixtures. So we paid for it in 3.5 years. What they said, what they explained to me right now is they have some of these fixtures in stock. We would need to decide within the next 3 or 4 months if we are going to do this. If we put it off, then they will be out of fixtures. They're made out overseas. They don't know when they'll get any more. So we would be able to have them done by the end of the year if we decide we want to do this. If we decide to put it off, who knows when it'll happen. Just keep that in mind. They sent, there should be in your packets, maybe I didn't send this to us over now. I thought I did. Yes, that's the light fixtures. You can see them.
It's not complete.
I have my questions about whether or not, they've got a different light fixture for the highways, and then there's the one for what would be in the residential neighborhoods. And even though they say this is dark sky compliant, I'm not so sure. I still think it's gonna be awfully bright. The way this, just kind of, not that you guys are gonna be able to see a whole lot from where you're sitting, but you can see that the fixture has clear, the light's just gonna shine out all four directions, even if it is shielded. It's like the house next door to me that has light fixtures outside that are supposedly down, the shielded. They turn their lights on at night and it is so bright. And so, and this fixture is much like this.
This fixture, about 3 or 4 of those are in Desert Gardens. So if you cruise by there at night, you can see the difference. I don't know if you can see that. Show up this.
She told me she thought they had done these in Rockville, Toberville, that we could, because I wanted a place we could go at night and drive around and see the.
You can see the Desert Gardens. So there's 2 types of lights in Desert Gardens. I only noticed because we recently replaced some burned out bulbs and the ones that were literally filled with sand. But most of them have a halogen bulb in the bottom that comes up. I know it's really hard to see from there. These lights, the light is up in the top part of it. There's actually little glass panes. So it's up inside the set. It's actually 100% shielded at that plane, but it's just as bright as the other.
Yeah. So we can decide, I just wanted us that we went ahead and talked with Candace today when we met with her, that she was also waiting to hear from us, do we want to go forward on these or not? And so.
Add something to that. Rocky Mountain Power came out there and did that. They said if Tokerville had gone with this, I think it might be worthwhile for all of us to check these out.
That's
Make a decision. And I'm going off just what the Rocky Mountain Power guy said. He said they're too dim. He said you can't see anything. He didn't like it, but that's preference.
Okay.
And I think we'll do well.
Well, yes, so she told me she thought Tokerville is where they had done some, and so I've been meaning to go out at night and drive around Tokerville and see what we think of their streetlights. So.
And talk to Lance, who wrote the public works director, Lance, give his take on it. I think they're somewhat happy, but they're questioning whether they're getting the return on investment.
That they were told.
Okay. We watched Rocky Mountain Power, watched it, we know they did this with the solar panels, and they all going to pay off, but then they start charging you more or taking less and the kilowatts return.
Okay.
So,
Well,
it could be a 10-year return. They will return them.
yeah, so I did ask her, what if we put these in and we hate the way they look? She's like, well, then you'll have to pay to take them out. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I just wanted to throw that out there so we could talk about it. So I would say maybe between now and next month, we drive through Tokerville at night and get an idea what their lights look like, see if there's anything at all we want. And if we decide no, then we'll tell Candace not to put this in the budget. Okay? All right. All right, then that next is the Washington County Sheriff and the contract. We had Crystal and I went to go meet with the sheriff and talk to them about increased presence in Virgin based on what Danny said at our last public hearing. So we went to go talk to them, and the sheriff gave us a proposed contract, and he said this would be what he would recommend. This is the way to start if we want increased presence in town, and this is for six hours a week. So basically another hour. The year is 14,400. It's nothing. Yeah. So if we want to budget for that, then we need to let Candace know that we want to budget this, and then contact the sheriff and let him know so that we want to go forward with this. So it seemed pretty easy because I asked him if 6 hours was enough. He said, this is where you need to start. I said, all right, fine.
That's one of the big questions. Will we be at 15,000?
That's a lot cheaper than having our own police force or contracting.
Quite a bit.
I would like to add to that, if possible, that we look at having him enforce a couple of ordinances.
We talked about ordinance enforcement, and I mean, code enforcement. And he said, if there's anything we need to enforce, we really better have this on our ordinances, that we better have these codes. And so when I was kind of putting that in with, since we were talking about in one of the things that's going to come up after we get the budget done and we start the next fiscal year, one of the things I want to do is say, okay, now let's sit down and start figuring out what codes we want to pass, what are we going to enforce, and set up everything for code enforcement. And then the sheriffs can enforce. And then we can potentially hire a code enforcement officer at some point in the future or whatever.
And I
A
think.
part-time.
And I think we need to look at the ordinances and decide, or a code, and decide which ones we want to make criminal, which ones we want to make a civil infraction.
Okay.
I like the fact that we use Rebecca as our prosecuting attorney, but getting a summons after the fact on stuff is not as in your face as a sheriff showing up at the door and saying it's.
Or as the mayor says, if you have a code enforcement officer, then that helps too.
The thing that I'm sure the sheriff's department will tell you, if you were to call them out, or if they were to stop in town hall on the way through town, say, is there anything you need? And Crystal's been tasked with saying, okay, this person needs to be cited for operating a business without a business license. We better give the officer a very specific citation to our ordinance so he can see it, he can write it in his citation, and he can see what kind of, it's class B misdemeanor, what is it? Because they're very familiar with, when you're talking about traffic, state traffic code, criminal code, all that stuff. I mean, they probably know most of those infractions, the reference number, or they can look it up very quickly. They have a way to do that. They don't with our town ordinances. So that's something that we have to improve on if we want their involvement in citing someone under a violation of our code, not state code.
Yeah, my understanding for Dr. Brooks, who was contending, correct me if I'm wrong, but they won't enforce town ordinances unless an extra fee is paid to do that, and then they'll only do a couple for that.
Well,
I don't trust that, you hate cops, I'm not.
No, I would say that would be the reason why we may want to pay for additional services, and that be the thing, hey, we're not gonna take advantage of the sheriff's department, but if we do need you to go out and actually physically hand someone a ticket, we need that done every once in a while.
Would that be included is my question.
In the 14.4, or is that extra?
If they've got to be here, patrol, I would think that would be something that they,
We have again,
you know, he probably can't speak for his.
yeah, it's already, whatever says law.
Okay, sorry, Crystal's all answers.
No, when we met with Nate Brooksby and we talked about code enforcement, he stated that when the time comes and we do eventually hire or a part-time code enforcer, they would go and put in their notes. So essentially, they would give a report and they would say, you know, I gave this such and such person a warning for such and such code, blah, 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 blah. They didn't do it, whatever, second warning, third warning, whatever we have, they would have in their notes. Then the sheriff's department would come up after they've been warned. In that note is all they need. That's enough for them. Because it shows our ordinance in that note. It will also show what infraction we have.
To me, that's 10 steps ahead of what we are going to do first. Code enforcement, hiring is a whole other subject. If we have the sheriff's department come up here to enforce an ordinance, I was told we have to pay them to enforce that ordinance. So let's say it's a noise ordinance, and we want somebody cited. They won't cite right now unless it's breaking the county code. If we have a town code we want to enforce, we have to have that written there, and then they will ticket them for that if we pay the extra money. So what I wanted to know is if we do this 14 and a half, is that part of it, or do we need to budget extra to cover those codes? I might find
So
out
the
before we
14 and a half
approve
is
the budget.
additional hours to what they've already controlled.
Okay, so what I'm asking is,
He's-
add those codes in, is that something the sheriff's department is going to then enforce a couple of codes?
And charge extra for. His question is extra charges.
The extra would have been included.
That's
We've
his
already got
question.
you out here, per the contract, providing the additional 6 hours a week. And so I would assume, but that's a very
Good
specific
question.
question. you can
Yeah, ask him. Okay.
So
Before it,
they're not-
yeah.
They're not gonna come out and just do 6 hours and that's it. If they are out here for 15 hours during the week for various things, they're out here for 15 hours, we're not gonna get billed extra for 15 hours.
That's not his, that's not her question. That's not the question.
Hours, it's about the enforcement of our code.
Yes.
To make it criminal to do flying drones, and the sheriff's here, and it's not a county thing, they won't currently enforce that. They can't, according to us. He said if we want code enforcement, we have to have it written in our Hulu,
Mhm.
or in our municipal code, rather.
That's a
and then-
crime.
As a crime, and then we pay them extra. So what I don't even know is if the 14,000 whatever covers that, or if we need to get additional funds into the budget to do that, because I do think that's important. I'm thinking very specifically of, say, water theft, or something like that.
So we just need to go and check with him between now.
Well, I would think, and well, I would know that the 14/4, that the 6 hours, that they come up here and spend the time doing these code enforcement stuff for you guys at your request, would just be part of the 6 hours. It doesn't mean we're not gonna be up here. Otherwise, the guys will still come up here and patrol. And they just keep track, so the patrol guys have a log that they're required to log. When we do contract with a local entity, they're required to log the time that they're here. And I can run that for anybody, it's easily searchable, I can run the time that's logged here. So if they come up and then you call them up to do code enforcement stuff, I would say, my recommendation would be, wait for a specific time when you have 3 or 4 violations that you would like them to go issue citations for, and then that would be their specific 6 hours or whatever that you're having them up there to do that. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean that we're gonna charge extra for that.
But I'll find out. I'll find out, yeah.
It's separate from that.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna spend 6 hours here. You can enforce our town ordinances currently, it's what Coach told.
Yes, that's what he told us too.
The county and state, they won't do the town ordinances unless we pay additional fee. So I just want to make sure that's not in there, we add that to the budget, so we can get some.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We'll find out. I'll find out before our next meeting. Okay. All right. So the last thing on here that I wanted us to talk about is this.
Hopefully, Mayor, that we'll talk briefly about master plan for what, for parks.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a clue what we're going to how we would price doing master
But,
plans, but,
Let's
okay.
talk about it for a few
All right.
minutes.
We no longer do have Rachel Beckstrom as our.
Yes, correct.
She has become ill.
She's sick.
With a life-threatening thing, and she is no longer practicing.
Yes.
So we are getting issued a new prosecuting attorney.
Don't know who that will be, but that will be coming. Yeah. So the next thing has to do with water meters for the construction meters. Yes. And so here was some quotes that, well, I'm going to let Crystal tell us about the water meters. What's the issue here?
Well, okay, our issue with water meters, these are construction meters. And the biggest issue that every town is facing, including our town, extremely bad, is a construction worker comes and gets a water meter. I'm not gonna see that water meter for 8 months to a year, if I'm lucky. So, and most of the time, the last 2 have brought back to me broken. I'm unable to read it, and unable to charge them the water that they've used. So, it's been a big issue, and it's an issue with several towns and cities around us. We're also having a hard time with your Schultzens trying to get water meters in. If you remember 7 months ago, there was a meeting here. That placed an order for new water meters, wasn't it like in April, almost a year ago, yeah.
They just recently came in.
Oh, no, we only got 2. We placed an order for 10, we've only gotten 2 in that last year. So they're hard to come by. Right now, they're currently paying a $1,000 deposit, which is barely covering the cost of the construction meter when they bring it in to be broken. And I cannot charge them their water usage because I have no idea what it is. These meters are through Badger. They have them in. They are a little bit more high-tech meters. There's two different options. The first option is just your basic meter with a hose on it that is a turn knob to turn on and off the water instead of using the fire hydrant to turn on and off the water. And the second one actually has an endpoint. So I can read the meter each month that they're not bringing it in when they're supposed to be every month. I did suggest maybe possibly getting some kind of tracking devices on ours, if it's the little my key things from Apple Find Me, so we can know where our meters are, because our meters are ending up in other cities and towns, hooked up to other fire hydrants, because our water's cheaper than, let's say, Hurricane. So we need to know where our meters are at. I have 8 right now, and I can only tell you where 2 is.
So I have a couple of issues, I think, that I've watched these guys, the way they treat these hydrant meters. And I think getting high-tech equipment is not necessarily the answer, because they're gonna get bumped, they're gonna get run over, they're gonna get broken, and that will be more expensive. The question is, what do we have as our in-point contact for those companies? And maybe we need to be charging a whole hell of a lot more money for a deposit. And if they show up and maybe they're broken, we can't turn the water, then we set a high fee that they're gonna pay.
Well,
So
and that's the thing right now is, if they break it, it's $1,000. Big deal to them. Because I'll tell you what, they use way more water than $1,000 worth of water in that. So to them, it's nothing. They don't care.
We've got these issues going on all over town, and it isn't just people using our meters somewhere else. We have working meters here, we have hurricane meters here, because the companies have rented them, and they can't get them here or anywhere else. So saying, I'm gonna bring my meter from Hurricane here and use it.
Well, and it's going on everywhere, but, and like, Hurricane has painted all their construction meters yellow. So we know if there's a yellow meter up here, and it's connected to somewhere on our fire hydrant, we know that's not ours.
So
And
Crystal,
we have the right to go confiscate it.
so Crystal and I propose that we paint ours hot pink.
Any other color than the standard red or blue, and I gotta check and see, Hurricane has theirs all a certain color too as well, but we need all of ours, one color that fits our town, whatever that is, so we know.
Yes, hot pink is available.
I think it's available too.
People laugh, I'm telling you, I wouldn't mind that, because when I drive into town, I know which construction companies are using them, and I'm always looking at them to see that they have that attached on them. Check out the camera every morning, I check this for you, if it's taken,
So if we're not going high tech, the average meter right now, through Badger that I can get is $1,365 per meter. And as our broken ones keep coming in, I need to buy new ones, and well, I still haven't got the 10 that I tried to order from Schultz's, so a year ago. But these ones, we can start getting them in, but I suggest that we raise the price of the deposit.
How much?
$1,500 instead of $1,365.
Yeah, but you're losing water. Why don't we raise it to 2,000?
Well, okay, so what you do is, if they come back with a broken meter, they pay a meter replacement fee and they pay a flat water fee.
For how many gallons?
How many gallons?
That's what you have to come in.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chris, you're supposed to, I'm not saying this to you. We are supposed to be getting those numbers read on a weekly basis, right?
A monthly basis.
So maybe we need to do it on a faster basis, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly. And if they can't give us the number, we send Dan out and remove them.
Yeah, that's the problem, is we
If
can't
knew
find
where they
them.
were.
Well, there's gotta be a contact person.
But these smart meters that you're talking about, you should be able to find, because you read them by GPS, you should be able to find their location.
Yeah.
Then if we do that, we've gotta raise the cost of those meters.
$1,800 deposit.
Which kind of backs into it and breaks it like we runs it over.
But at least we know that 3 of our meters are in Hurricane and one of them's in, Tocqueville or something.
So if we're gonna do the average meter, I would suggest we raise it to $1,500, and if we're gonna do the more high tech, we'll do $2,000.
And if they break it, we'll have to check it.
But the neat thing about this is, aren't you saying with that smart meter, you can remote read it?
Yeah, it has an endpoint, like all of our meters around town, where I can just look on the computer and read it.
Yes, she can read it without, and she can see where it's at.
I can't see where it's at unless we get the little GPS into it, which is like $50 or $25.
Did the county ever return their meter? They'd had it for months, you told me.
Washington County roads, no?
Okay, so the reason I had this on the agenda was for us to talk about if we want, two reasons. One, that if we want to budget for ordering some more meters, budget for that, to order some more meters. And then if we're going to raise this has nothing to do with the budget, but just that if we're going to raise the deposit fee, we'll have to do a resolution for raising that fee, just like we're having to do a resolution to raise the fees for Heritage Town Square. We'll have to do a resolution for that. All of them at one time, right?
Can I ask you a question, sir? I want you to drag out. I need a little bit more clarification. So when somebody takes a meter, we can't find, we've got a contact person. We know they're working on a project here in town. Would I be within my power to, or authority to red tag a project until we get those readings on those water meters? Because that might just be the way we get through the message. You're gonna call me saying weekly or monthly or whatever time we want. Your red tag, you'll have.
So you're saying,
We don't know when the
you're
meter's.
saying that the checkout or the rental of the meter is specific to a certain site here in town?
Well, it's supposed to be.
It's
Well,
supposed to.
whether they use it somewhere else or not,
Yeah.
they have a project going on here in town, so if they move it somewhere else and they're not getting us the information, we'll red tag the project here in town until we get the reading.
Best enforcement.
Yeah.
But I gotta make sure that you do that, because red tags, you can't just red tag for anything, if you don't like them all, you gotta be careful what you use, but that's where it's.
You can. I'm positive that you can.
Am I gonna have the communication, because even if we get new ones, we still got all these old ones we're using, so. the problem
Well,
is-
and that's what I'm saying, as our old ones are phasing out or getting broken or, you know, then we order these new ones coming
You're gonna
in.
be able to pipe wrench break the motion.
No. Good try.
Okay, sorry, Gene.
So do we want to budget for more or not?
Yes.
Yes. So how many would you recommend that we budget for? She said you tried to order 10 and you got 2?
But they have them on stock, they have, so if I order.
Yes, right. Badger has them and Schultz's did not.
So I
Right.
propose we order 10 of the higher ones included, and they're $50 for the GPS, and give them all lists and bells, raise it to $2,000, and then determine what we want to do if they, I mean, we gotta figure out before we budget it, I guess, or before we do a rate change, but what we're gonna charge if they break. If you read it weekly, and all of a sudden, if you read it weekly, and then all of a sudden you're not getting contact, and you come with a broken screen or something, what are we gonna charge you?
So we're going to have a deposit plus a breakage charge. Okay.
And a fee for the water that.
Yeah, right.
assume they've used over time.
Right.
I don't know how you get through that. That's beyond me.
For a flat fee. And you might kill it on some, you might lose on some, but you created a deterrent from being careless with the meters and then walking back a broken thing, thinking that it's cheaper to break it and return it broken where it can't be read. Because if that's the situation under the new thing you're talking about, you're gonna be paying to replace the meter and still paying a flat water usage.
So you said 10 of the number 2 on the list, 10? Okay. So that'll be about $20,000. Because you then said also like the little GPS tags. So I think by the time we do that, we're around $20,000, Leroy, that we would want to tell Candace. Okay.
And a $2,000 deposit fee, and how much do you think we should have for a
Breakage?
A breakage, what, $10,000? They bring them broken? Right, yeah, but I mean for water usage.
Because then you can't just, okay.
How much are we charging for the water usage? Per gallon, per 1,000 gallons of
dollar, it's the same, it's like $1 every 1,000 gallons.
So maybe we charge them for, charging an extra $200 for water usage.
That's not enough. That won't deter them.
That's 20.
We can put, we need to change the contract, if they bring it in where it's unreadable, then it's like a flat $500 fee.
Okay, so what I will do,
It's a breakage fee, they'll pay the whole thing.
Well, they'll pay the breakage to replace the meter, but if I can't read it.
okay, okay, okay.
We're
okay,
talking about a
okay.
flat fee.
Okay, guys, so here's what we're gonna do. Right now, we just want to know what to put in the budget, which is the $20,000. The rest of this, we can work on, I can work on a resolution for what we want to do, and we can
Okay.
look at it and see what we want to adjust. Okay? And then, as Heath was saying, what we'll do next month is an adjustment to the the consolidated fee schedule, and we'll do both the Heritage Town Square fees, these fees, all that in one resolution. Okay. So is there anything else that you guys want to talk about with regard to the budget?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You want to talk about master plans. Sorry. Yes, Paul. And then
Since we don't have the BMX track electricity going, and that's kind of a park-related issue, I really think we need to do a master park plan or a master park recreation open space trails plan, a Prost type plan. And that way we can look at future parks, improvements needed to our current park system. I've had various constituents contact me about, what about this improvement to this park, playground equipment, trail around Pocketville Park, so on. And we really don't know what we're going to do without having a plan in place. And then that will help us develop our capital improvements plan for the future. And so we can use the 43,000 that you have budgeted for the BMX track and just use that as a placeholder. And then we'll have to develop requests for proposals. And if it comes in over that, then we can make a decision if we want to use RAP funds or not to pay for that.
so if we do that, Leroy, the way we put that she was going to budget that money for the electricity, the account she was going to put that in, would this be a different account if we're still going to hold that?
It would be under parks.
It would still be the same account. Okay. All right.
All Enterprise just did their parks and recreation and trails master plan update, $32,000. The company developed a standard